Assalamu alaikum students, I hope everyone is doing well. Walaikum assalam everybody. Um, how's everything going? How's the preparation going? Okay. Let's get started. This is a good paper. इसके कुछ सवाल, some of the questions in these three variants I found tricky. So we need to cover this. Question number 1 says the statement from a report by a water company that supplies water to homes and businesses. Which statement is normative? So which statement would be normative? What would be the correct answer to this question? I think ये मैंने this is not variant 13. This is but चलो यही खोल लेते हैं, पहले variant 13 कर लेते हैं. This is variant on variant 11, this is variant 13. So let's do the October November 2018 variant 13 first, ठीक है? Okay, so which statement would be normative here? The correct, it is important that we continue to invest in our infrastructure. ये लग रहा है, I think this should be the answer. Our investment will have a wider benefit attracting visitors to the region. So obviously this statement is positive statement because the the outcomes are predictable over here. It is a statement that could be tested. And secondly, we are investing more is again a factual claim. It's again, we are investing more. So whether they're investing more or not, this could be tested. Based on that, we could accept it or reject it. That whether the statement is actually correct or wrong. So this is also a positive statement. We use local suppliers on construction projects which boost the local economy. Now whether you guys use local suppliers or not is again a statement that could be tested. It is not a value judgment. You can test this statement and figure out whether local suppliers are used or not, or whether they're just making a claim, a false claim. So we're left with only option A as the correct answer, because A says it is important that we continue to invest in our infrastructure. It's sort of an opinion or a value judgment, which is normative statement, right? It is important that we continue to invest in our infrastructure. It is sort of an opinion, coming from a person or right. So that is why A is the correct answer. Yes. Question number 2 says the combinations of output of good X and Y shown in the table could all be produced using the existing resources in a country to their maximum capacity. Which statement about the opportunity cost of good Y in terms of good X is correct? So which statement about the opportunity cost of good Y in terms of good X is correct? So you need to find out the opportunity cost of good Y. So you have different combinations, right? These are different combinations, 1, 2, 3 and 4. So combination 1 pe you're sort of making 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I'm just making a very rough diagram, but right, so this is, let's say, this is good X and this is good Y. So you're making 220 X here, 10, and then 225. So the opportunity cost from moving from 1 to 2, combination 1 to combination 2, you're making 15 more Y and you're foregoing 20 X, right? So for every Y that you produce, how much X would be foregone? So what you need to do is that, between combination 1 and 2, you're making 20 more X and you're foregoing 15 Y. Similarly here, you're making my bad. You're making 15 Y and you're foregoing 20 X. Similarly, again, you're foregoing 20 X and you're making 15 Y. then you're foregoing 40x and you're making 30y, and then you're foregoing 50x and you're making 30y. So you can find out the opportunity cost, the margin. You need to calculate the marginal opportunity cost, that is the opportunity cost of producing 1y. So 20 divided by 15 is what? 20 divided by 15 is 1.33y, and then it's 20 upon 15 is again 1.33y, right? So 40 divided by 30 is what? 1.33y, and 50 divided by 30 is 1.67y. So as you're going along the curve, initially the opportunity cost is constant, but then it went up. So again, let's look at the statements here that have been made. So these are your opportunity cost for producing each additional y as you produce more and more y. So it decreases as the output increases. No, it is not decreasing as the output of y is increasing. This is incorrect. It is always below 1:1.1. No, it is always above 1 is. For every 1 y that you make, the opportunity cost of producing x is always more than 1. It is constant throughout the range of output showed. No, it is not constant throughout. It has increased when you move from combination 4 to combination 5. So the correct answer is David. It is never above 1y to 2x. For every y that you make, you are foregoing, the maximum that you will forego is 2x, and we can see that it is under this, under 2x, right? The opportunity cost of 1y is under 2x. Anyways, got it? So that's how you do question number 2. Question number 3 says the diagram shows two production possibility curves for goods and services in an economy. What would not cause the production possibility curve to shift from PPC1 to PPC2? Yes, what would not cause the curve to shift from PPC1 to PPC2? What would not cause? It says what would not cause the curve to shift from PPC1 to PPC2. And the correct answer for question number 3 is A for alpha, an increase in the level of employment, because an increase in the level of employment will just make the economy will make use of the existing resources more efficiently, and that would not increase the productive capacity, but would just help the economy go through better utilization of resources and reduce the unemployment. Right, so A is the correct answer. All the other factors could shift the production possibility curve because they're improving either the quality of the factors of production or they are improving the quantity of the factors of production. So either of the case, your PPC shifts outwards. Question number 4 says, what is a statement of non-rival nature of public goods? Now, as far as non-rival nature of it is not possible to stop a non-pair. It is not possible to stop a non-pair. So this is indicating non-excludability of this is not non-rival, this is non-excludable. Correct answer should be boy. One person consuming the product does not reduce the amount available to others. Easy peasy question. Question number 5 says, what is not held constant when aggregating the individual supply curves to give short-run market supply curve? Yes, this is a good question. What is not held constant? Yes. What is not held constant when aggregating individual supply curves to give the short-run market supply curve? And the correct answer is B for boy. The reason is that if this is your supply curve for, let's say there are only two firms, A and B, and for a dollar, firm A is okay with making 10 units, while B is a bit more elastic, or let's say it's more inelastic. So for $1, B would only make, let's say, 3 units. So the market would in total produce, for every $1, it would produce how many? 13 units for $1. And then if the price goes up to, let's say, $5, for $5, you will produce, let's say, 15 units, and for $5, this guy B over here would only produce maybe 5 units. So you're left with only 15 plus 5, that is 20. So somewhere over here. So what we're doing over here essentially is that we are horizontally adding up the corresponding price and quantity values to find out the market supply. And obviously we won't keep the price constant because we want to figure out the market supply of this particular product at different prices. So we can't keep the prices constant. That's why the prices, we're saying that you have to keep the price changing because you want to figure out what the market is producing at different prices. Question number 6. The diagram shows the demand for a product for which there are only 3 buyers: Freeman, Hardy, and Willis. Yeah, do this question. The diagram shows the demand for a product for which there are only 3 buyers. So this is your demand curve for which there are only 3 buyers: Freeman, Hardy, and Willis. And the table shows the demand from 2 of the 3 buyers, Freeman, Hardy. And which statement about the demand for the product from Willis is correct? It says that which statement about the demand for the product from Willis is correct? Yes. What do you think would be the answer to this question? G. You think it's D? It's D. How many of you guys think it's D? So only one student is saying it's D. Only one student says it's D. What does the rest of the people think about this question? What would be the answer? Right? So yeah, D is correct actually. And the reason is that let's do one thing. Let's take the total demand for Freeman and Hardy. So the Freeman plus Hardy's demand together would be at $15. Freeman and Hardy are together willing to buy how many units? 30 units. At 15, 20, and at 20 they're willing to buy 10 units. Now if the market demand at $10, how much is the market demand at $10? It's 40. The market demand at $15 is 30, and the market demand at $20 is 20. So obviously you can take out the difference to calculate how much Willis is going to buy at $10, 15, and 20, and that should come up to, for $10 Willis will buy only 10 units. For 15 as well, he'll buy 10, and he'll buy 10, which means that the demand is perfectly inelastic. D, David, is the correct answer. D for David. That's what makes D, David, the correct answer. Got it, guys? Because as the price is going up, we can clearly see that Willis is still buying 10 units despite the fact that the price is going up from 10 to 15 to 20. Are we clear on this? Yeah, the quantity is fixed. So basically Willis's demand curve looks something like this. For 10 units is for $10, for $15, as well as for $20. So the demand curve is fixed. It's a vertical straight line. Unitary though, it can't be unitary, because unitary price elasticity is basically this is unitary price elasticity. It means that unitary price elasticity simply means the percentage change in quantity demanded equals to the percentage change in price. That's what a unitary elastic is. And here it says it's perfectly inelastic demand curve. And we didn't really need to find out the elasticity even. We haven't found out the elasticity. It's just clear that if the demand curve, if the quantity is not changing, the demand has to be perfectly inelastic. So for this demand curve, the demand has to be equal to 0. It has to be perfectly inelastic. Unitary elastic means that the percentage change in quantity exactly equal to the percentage change in price. And if the percentage change in quantity equal to percentage in price, the PD equals to 1. And if the PD equals to 1, it means that the revenue or the expenditure that was made by purchasing and selling the previous quantity, and now after purchasing and selling the new quantity at the new price, they are the same. But we don't really have to do anything with revenue or anything. And revenue revenue will also be different here. You multiply 10 by 10 and 10 by 15 and 10 by 20 each time. Willis buys the product, he's paying a different amount, right? Okay, got it? So the amount that he's paying is not, so A is not the correct answer. Which statement about the price elasticity, again an easy question, which statement about the price elasticity of supply is correct? The correct answer should be boy. It increases as the time period lengthens. The P, it increases means that the PES gets more elastic. If the PES is increasing, it gets more elastic. If it's decreasing, it gets less elastic. Question number 8 says, at a price of $4, a manufacturer supplies 20 units of a good per week. The value of the price elastic supply is 2 over a range of price. How many goods will be supplied at 5? So you have P1, which is $4, and the P2 is $5. The quantity Q1 is 20. You don't know the quantity you don't know the quantity, the new quantity, and simply what you'll do is that you calculate the price elasticity of supply, which is the formula percentage change in quantity supply divided by the percentage change in price times 100, right? Okay, which is equal to how much? Which is equal to 2. So pretty simple, percentage change nikalne quantity supplied mein, that is x minus 20 divided by 20 times 100 over percentage in price, which is 5 minus 4 upon 4 times 100 equals to 2. And you can solve out yourself the value of x. Got it? Everyone? ठीक है. So the correct answer for this, हमारे पास जो x की value आएगी, x would be basically representing, the value of x would be representing over here, it would be representing the new quantity supplied, and that should be 30 आनी चाहिए आपकी, ठीक है? It should come up to 30. Okay, got it? Question number 9 says consumers wishing to listen to music at home can now access it online. This has resulted in the closure of shops selling CDs. Obviously, demand for CDs will go down. So the correct answer has to be C for Charlie. Simple. Got it? Question number 10 says, an international oil company announced that it would stop exploring for oil off the coast of Namibia. Sorry. This was because there was only enough oil to support a local power station for Namibia and not enough oil exports, and not enough to allow export of oil. So they're like, if we start exploring more and to export, then it would be not, we can't really do it. There won't be enough oil for the local power station, so let's not explore any more oil over there for exporting. And what is the possible disadvantage and advantage to Namibia of this decision? Now, a cut in taxes has nothing to do. Reduced taxes are a disadvantage, not an advantage, because the less taxes the government will get less taxes, so it's not an advantage, it's a disadvantage. A reduction in the potential cost of pollution, this looks like an advantage, and saving in costly research, this looks like an advantage, but a loss of employment opportunity. A saving in costly research paid for by, this is just a normal statement, this has nothing to do with with the oil exploration thing. The exhaustion of a natural resource is a disadvantage, not an advantage. So the correct answer has to be B, because the pollution will go down. It's an environmental benefit, so that's an advantage. The disadvantage is that since oil exploration will stop. It won't really technically oil exploration will stop, so the country will, because there's not enough oil left, so the country will have to import oil to fulfill the domestic demand, which would result into increased import dependency, and increased import dependency would mean that it would need to import oil at a much higher prices, so the country would sort of lose out the cheaper oil that it could basically the international oil company could dig and explore. So again, there's no local oil, and then it would result in import dependency, which will result into higher prices, making boy the correct answer. Question number 11 says, the table shows a comparative market in equilibrium. What could explain the change? So the market price is going up, the quantity traded is going up, which means that the demand is increasing definitely, right? So just take out the point where the demand is increasing, and that is where that should be buoy and increase in the price of substitute, which will increase the demand for the product. Simple. Question number 12 says, in the diagram, D1 is the demand curve and S1 is the supply curve. The Indian government imposes a tax on tea which causes supply to shift to S2. Which area in the diagram measures the resulting tax revenue to the Indian government and the new producer surplus? So the tax revenue would be the distance between the two supply curves times the quantity. So this is Q1, this is the new quantity. So the tax revenue should be WXY, right? This rectangle should be the tax revenue. Price times quantity, WXY. And the new producer surplus should be the area above the new price under the new supply curve. Just a second. So it should be W, right? The area that is below the new price, below the new price above the supply curve, which is area W. So that's the producer surplus after tax. So the correct answer for question number 12 is David, right? It's David. WXY and W. Okay? Yes, that's correct. You guys are correct. It's David. Question number 13 says the diagram shows a demand and supply curve for bananas. What happens to consumer surplus when the price increases from P1 to P2? So the consumer surplus should ideally go down if the price is increasing, but by how much? Pretty simple. This was the initial consumer surplus at P1. This the big triangle, that was P1 VY, and now the consumer surplus would go down to P2 W, right? So the correct answer is boy. It decreases from P1 VY to P2 VW. Got it? Simple. It decreases from P1 VY to P2 VW. This would be the new consumer surplus. The reason being that when the price is going up, definitely the price would be going up because supply would be going down. So this is the quantity that you're purchasing, right? Okay. And if the question asked you that how much is the utility how much is the amount of satisfaction that the consumer is receiving by consuming Q1 units at the new price? How much is the satisfaction the consumer would receive by consuming Q1 units at the new price? So, I mean, this entire area that is under the demand curve, let's call it OVWQ1, right? OVWQ1 represents the amount of satisfaction consumer would receive, or you could say the willingness of the consumer to pay for this product. It shows how much the consumer values the product and how much is he willing to, the maximum that he is willing to pay, which means that this is the amount of utility or satisfaction he would actually derive, right? They have actually asked this twice or thrice as well. Question number 14 is a good question. Question 14, kare zara, what would be the answer? Question number 14 should be A for apple. A maximum price that is set below the equilibrium will cause shortage, right? Obviously, and a minimum price that is set above the equilibrium will cause a surplus. So A is the correct answer. Okay, maximum prices are meant to provide relief to consumers, while minimum prices are meant to provide stability and revenue for producers, but they end up resulting in shortages and surpluses. Got it? Question number 15 says the diagram shows the original demand and supply curve for a good. So you have the original demand curve D1 and then you have S1. For a particular good, the government introduces a subsidy. The government has introduced a subsidy. So what will be the total consumer spending after the introduction of a subsidy? So the amount the consumer would spend would be the new price times the quantity that the consumer will consume. And the new price is 20 times 6, right? So it's 120. Boy is the correct answer for question number 15. Nothing Simple question. Which is a transfer payment? A transfer payment is, and in you can see in every MCQ they ask about transfer payment. So transfer payments, we know that transfer payments, pensions are transfer payments, because pensions are income that you receive without any productive contribution made in your society, economy, or GDP. Anyways, question number 17 says a flood control dam is an example of what? It's an example of a good that is provided directly by the government. A flood control dam, obviously it's a public good, right? So which statement relating to the direct provision of flood control dam is not correct? And the correct answer for this would be C. Direct provision of flood control dam involves the supply of a merit good. This is an incorrect statement, because direct provision of flood control dam involves the supply of a public good, not a merit good. And A, B, and D are correct, actually. Right? A, B, and D are correct statements. Got it? Question number 18 says there has been a worldwide move towards market economies and away from state-controlled nationalized industries. Which policy would limit this transition? Development of well-functioning capital markets would not limit the transition. It will support market-based reforms. Establishment of a stable convertible currency as well, would support market-based reforms made in the economy. National and international liberalization of markets and trade would again support market-based reforms. So the correct answer has to be David. Regulation of prices of former nationalized products, because price regulation, as in regulating the prices and not allowing the prices to be floating freely in the market, and not allowing the free market economics to determine the prices, especially on formerly nationalized goods, would restrict the market liberalization that you have to. What's the point of market liberalization if you want to do that? If you want to still control those prices. Question number 19 says an economy has an equilibrium level of national real output but wishes to move towards its full employment level of real output via FE. Which combination of policy measures is most likely to achieve this wish without high inflation? Which combination of policy measures is likely to achieve this wish without high inflation? So there's only one way you can actually achieve that, is through demand side plus supply side policy. So you want to move towards full employment, and that would happen when you come up with demand side policies, but it should be accompanied with supply side policies as well. That makes A the correct answer. Decreasing interest rates is an expansionary demand side monetary policy. Raising investment in new technology, supply side policy. So what will happen is that the only way you can actually make this happen is that you shift your demand curve outward, but at the same time it sort of also shifts your supply curve outwards, right? And your price level would be the same in that case, right? Okay, make sense? Okay, so it's the same. So this is what the question is sort of asking. Moving forward, question number 920. So A is the correct answer. Question number 20 says in the diagram, what is happening in the diagram? In the diagram, AD and AS are an economy's original demand and supply. AD and AS diagrams. What will cause the AD to shift to the right? What is going to cause the aggregate demand to shift outwards? Aggregate demand is going to shift, it's what will cause AD to shift to AD2. So AD is falling here. So question number 20 should be an appreciation of the currency. It should be A. Appreciation, because appreciation will make your imports cheaper and exports expensive, reducing your net exports. And when net exports goes down, AD would go down, right? So yes, 20A is the correct answer. Got it? Question number 21. A country experiences a fall in consumer price index. When consumer price index falls, it means there's deflation, and deflation would reduce the cost of living. So 21, the correct answer is D for David. If your CPI index is going down, it means that your country is experiencing deflation. Okay. 22. The balance of payment accounts are arranged in the following way. What total is the current account balance? What total is the current account balance? Yes, what total is the current account balance? What total is the current account balance? The correct answer should be C, because you see what's happening here is that it's arranged in a way that it's saying that the balance of trade in goods plus the balance of trade in services, the total is A, which is let's say 100, plus the net income, which is let's say, I don't know, 20 maybe. So total of B should be 120, and let's say net transfers are in negative maybe, so let's say 10 negative, so you have like 110 positive, right? So again, 110 is the balance on your current account. So capital balance obviously is not a part of your current account income, your current account component. So again, the answer should be C for Charlie. Okay. Question number 22 says the US central bank lowers the interest rate. This has the effect on the exchange rate of the US dollar. The diagram shows resulting changes in demand and supply of US dollar in the forex market. A change is shown by a move from the curve numbered 1 to 2. Okay. What curves WXYZ labeled to show the effect of an interest rate fall on the exchange rate? Right? Um, 23. समरा बाद में देख लीजिएगा, वीडियो अपलोड हो जाएगी. We are done with 22 now. 23 में the correct answer should be A, because what they're saying is they're just saying कि भाई ये जो X, Y, Z और ये हैं, ये what are those curves? So interest rate is going up, right? Effect of a fall. So the interest rate is going down. So the interest rate is falling, and if the interest rates would fall, it would result into hot money outflows. Not only would it result into hot money outflows, but the potential hot money inflows would fall as well. And so the demand for the currency would go down, because as compared to previously, because so what will happen is the demand for the currency would go down. Less people would demand your currency because they wouldn't really want to put in the money in your banks. So there would be less capital inflows, hot money inflows, hot short-term flows into the country. At the same time, as interest rates are falling, so those people who have already deposited money in your country, they would withdraw that, and it would result in capital outflows, increasing the supply of the currency. So demand for currency is going down, supply of the currency is going up. So demand for the currency is going down. So this has to be this has to be the new demand curve for this has to be D2, this has to be D1, and supply is going up. So this has to be S1 and this has to be S2. And so X has to be S2. So A is the correct answer. A is the correct answer. Okay. The correct answer for question number 23 is A for alpha. Okay. The curve to the right has to be F2, S2, and the curve to the left has to be D2. That's what makes 23 the correct answer. A is the correct answer. 23. Then 24 says the table refers to a particular country. Which statement about the period 2005 to 2015 is correct? Which statement about 2005 to 2015 is correct? So you have index of import prices, then you have index of export prices. Now index of import and export prices is required when we are calculating terms of trade. So balance of payment has worsened. The data that is given to us has nothing to do with calculating the balance. We can't really figure out whether the balance of trade has worsened or not by looking at this, right? So this is incorrect. The current account balance, this is not showing the current account balance, it's just simply export and import prices, so we can't figure that out as well. We can't figure out whether exchange rate has appreciated or we can't figure out whether exchange rate has appreciated or depreciated based on the data for import and export prices. So this is incorrect as well. So we are left with D, that is the terms of trade fell. ठीक है. So we exam में अगर हम absolutely clear होंगे ना कि भाई the three answer options are incorrect, if you're absolutely clear on it, so we'll mark the fourth option as the right option if you're not able to figure out why it is. But if you're 100% sure in the exam that those three that we have ruled out, those options that we have ruled out are incorrect, we're 100% sure on that, so we'll mark the fourth option as the correct option even if we don't understand why it is correct in the exam situation. But here the terms of trade are following. Calculate the terms of trade. It's simply index of export prices upon the index of import prices times 100, which is what you need to do is 57 divided by 48.1 times 100. Multiplying by 100 would give you an index number. It would calculate this ratio, the export price over import price ratio, into an index number. So what is that is the value coming out? And क्या आ रही है value? 120.8 times divided by 122.4 times 100, which is giving you 98.6. Now what is this value coming up, guys? What is that value coming up? The previous value is coming up how much? You guys please have a calculator if you're sitting on the stream, so you must have a calculator in front of you. क्या आ रही है value? The correct value is 118.5 and 118.5 say it's moving to 98.6. Terms of trade is falling. अब यहाँ पे 2010 equals to 100 means that 2010 is the base year. Now we really don't have to do any. I mean, the fact that 2010 is the base year doesn't really matters for us in this particular MCQ's calculation. It's just saying that 2010 is the base year, but that doesn't really matters to us because it's not asking us to calculate the terms of trade index from 2010 to 2015. It's asking us to calculate the terms of trade, what happened to it between 2005 to 2015. So we really don't know. We don't need the base year's index for us to. It's not providing us with any insights or usefulness. That's just given there to confuse you. Okay, I want you to solve 25 yourself first. Take time, 2 minutes, solve 25. And then I'll discuss it with you guys. Take a minute, look at 25 and then solve it, and then I'll discuss it with you. This is a question that has been bothering a lot of people. I have been receiving a lot of messages for this particular MCQ. G. Okay, so two countries, Northland and Southland, produce two goods, food and drink. Okay. So the table shows how many hours each has to. Here they have given you the number of hours. Usually they give you the number of units, right? But here they have given you the number of hours to produce 1 unit of each product. After specializing according to comparative advantage, they decide to trade. Now, obviously, Fazan A is the incorrect answer. Let me tell you how you're going to be doing these questions. So whenever they give you hours or whenever they give you input prices, whenever they give you inputs, whenever they will give you inputs, that is whether they could be any, mostly it's hours, but whenever they can even at times use the word inputs. So if they have given you inputs, what you need to do is that you need to calculate the number of units based on 1 hour. I'll tell you what I'm trying to say. See, Northland can produce one, so it's saying the table shows how many hours each has to use to produce 1 unit of each product. So if Northland invests 10 hours into food, it will produce 1 unit of a food. If Northland invests 4 hours into drink, it produces a unit of a drink. Southland 20 hours may 1 food and this 1 drink in 12 hours. So what we need to do is that देखें यहाँ पे सारे hours different हैं. So just take out so just take out the number of units that would be made if 1 hour is invested in food and 1 hour is invested in drink. I want you guys to calculate the number of food and drinks that would be made if 1 hour is invested in food and 1 hour is invested in drink. So the reason we need to do that is so that the comparison becomes possible. Right now it's impossible to compare because of different hours. So what you need to do is that if in 10 hours one unit of a food is made by Northland, then in 1 hour how many units of a food will be made? That is 1 upon 10. So let's take 0.1. So 0.1 units of a food will be made in 1 hour. And in 4 hours you make a unit of a drink. Then in 1 hour, how many units of drinks will you make? You will end up making 0.25 drinks. Same goes for food and drink in Southland. You are going to divide 1 by 20, and that is that if Southland gives 1 hour to food, it will be able to make 0.05 units of a food, and similarly it will be able to make how many units of a drink? It will be able to make कितने हो जाएंगे drinks? कितने हो जाएंगे? 1 upon 12, right? It would be 0.083. Right now you have these ratios in front of you. Now what you need to look at it is that it says which exchange rate. Now अब आपके पास ना now you can calculate the comparative advantage properly. The reason being is that अब हमारे पास ये जितने भी units दिए हुए हैं, all these units that have been given to us right now are based on the calculation of 1 hour for each country. Because when you are calculating the comparative advantage, obviously it is showing that both are now, if both countries are investing 1 hour, right, 1 hour to food or 1 hour to drink, 1 hour to food or 1 hour to drink, then how many units will be made, right? So we can now easily calculate the comparative advantage. So अब देखें, what you can do is that the question is asking what is the exchange rate will allow both countries to benefit from trade. Now it's so basically the exchange rate in the question is basically giving you how much the exchange rate is basically giving you that how much a unit of food will be exchanged against the drink. So 1 unit of food ka exchange rate they have given you, right? So just calculate the opportunity cost of 1 unit of food. So the opportunity, so let's say that Northland can either make 0.1 food or 0.25 drink, and based on that, if it makes, so based on that, if Northland makes a unit of food, then how many drinks will be made? If 0.1 food can be made by foregoing 0.25 drinks, then for every unit of food, how many drinks would be foregone? 0.25 divided by 0.1, and that is 2.5. So for every unit of food, 2.5 drinks will be foregone. यहाँ तक सबको समझ आया? Did you guys understand how we arrived at 2.5? If for 0.1 food we are foregoing 0.25 drinks, then for every food, how many drinks will be foregone? 2.5 drinks will be foregone. Similarly, for 0.05 food, we are foregoing 0.083 drinks. Then for 0.083 drinks, we will be foregoing how much? Sorry, for every 1 unit of food in Southland, if Southland makes a unit of food, how many drinks will it be foregoing? It will be foregoing 1.6 drinks. Now you can clearly see that Southland has a comparative advantage in food because Southland can produce a unit of food by only foregoing 1.6 drinks, while Northland can basically produce a unit of food by 2.5 drinks. So Northland does not have, but Northland has a comparative advantage in drinks because Northland could make 2.5 drinks by only foregoing a food, while Southland could only end up making 1.6 drinks by foregoing the same 1 unit of food. So but finding out the comparative advantage is not relevant here. We don't need to find out the comparative advantage. We can easily solve this MCQ now. If you guys have seen my comparative advantage videos, I've told you guys before that if for let's say for this is 1, and so if this is Northland's PPC, so for every unit of food that Northland makes, it has to forgo 2.5 drinks, and for it has to forgo 2.5 drinks, and this is Northland. And for every unit of food that Southland makes, it has to forgo 1.6 drinks. So the opportunity cost ratios, the trade ratio has to lie between the opportunity cost ratios. The trade ratio has to lie between the opportunity cost ratio. So is there any ratio out of the option A, B, C, D that lies somewhere in between? That is, it has to be more than 1.6 and less than 2.5. So any ratio that is more than 1.6 or less than 2.5 is how much? Is an option C, which is 2. ठीक है. अब obviously ये आपने first time मेरे साथ किया है, you're doing this for the first time, so obviously you're finding it a bit complicated, but there are multiple MCQs like these where they have given units of inputs, and you can sort of now. So what you need to do is to sum it up. I'll tell you what we have done here. They had given you 10 hours, 4 hours, 20 hours, 12 hours. What you need to do is that find out a common base and say that for every hour how many units are made. So for every hour, these are the number of units that have to be made, and then you calculate the opportunity cost ratios. फिर आप इस तरह निकाल लें, depending upon the question, you can easily find out whether you need to calculate the opportunity cost of one food or you need to calculate the opportunity cost of one drink. When you look at the options, you will figure that out, right? Now the thing is that guys, that and it actually makes sense. मैं हमेशा स्टूडेंट्स को यही इंकरेज करता हूँ दैट डू नॉट रट्टाफाई थिंग्स एंड don't ratify things and try to understand by logic. That if at times they have started asking MCQs that which country will benefit from trade and which will not. So what is the reason why do we really need the opportunity cost ratio to be between the trade ratio? As in, if the ratio is 1:2, is it benefiting? Is this ratio beneficial? If this is the exchange ratio, then is this exchange ratio beneficial 1:2? Yes, this is a beneficial ratio because you see, Northland is basically which country is specializing in food? Which is the country that is specializing in food, right? So which is the country that is specializing in food right now? Basically, Southland is specializing in food, right? Southland will specialize in food and then it will trade it with Northland. So if Southland will specialize in food, it will give away one unit of a food and get 2 drinks in return, right? Southland will give away because that's the exchange ratio. Southland will give away 1 unit of a food and get 2 drinks in return, right? And this is beneficial for Southland. Why is it beneficial for Southland? Why do we say that opportunity cost ratio should lie between the opportunity why do we say that the trade ratio should lie between the opportunity cost ratio? उसका reason आप समझें. उसका reason ये है कि Southland can basically, if Southland is to be engaging in international trade with Northland, and Southland has to give away 1 unit of food, if Southland has to give away 1 unit of food, it definitely needs more than 1.6 drinks. Because if Southland is going to get less than 1.6 drinks, what's the point of engaging in international trade, right? मतलब ये वाला जो trade ratio होता है ना, 1 unit is to 1.2 या 1 unit is to 1 unit of a drink, ये favorable नहीं होता Southland के लिए. Southland कहता भाई, अगर मैं if I am giving away a unit of food to you and you're giving me just 1 drink or half a drink, what's the bloody point? I could end up making 1.6 drinks myself by giving away a unit of food. So I don't need you, Northland. That is what it will say to Northland, right? Similarly, this ratio of 1:2 is also going to benefit Northland. Why is it going to benefit Northland? It's going to benefit Northland because the ratio of 1:2, because you see, Northland is going to specialize in drinks. Northland जो है is going to specialize in drinks, right? Northland is going to competitive advantages in drinks, so Northland will specialize in drinks. So Northland will be like, you know what? I'll be specializing in drinks and I am going to be giving away, based on this ratio, I'm going to be giving away 2 units of a drink in return for 1 food from Southland. So Northland will be like, I'll be giving away 2.5 drinks. Sorry, my bad. I'll be giving away 2 drinks in exchange for 1 unit of a food from Southland. And this is beneficial for Northland as well, because giving away 2 drinks in exchange for a 1 unit of food is beneficial for Northland. Because if Northland did not do this, if Northland tried making food itself, it would have to give away 2.5 units of drinks. But now it only has to export or give away 2 units, right? So this is beneficial for Northland as well. So that is why it is beneficial for Southland and Northland, in the ways that when Southland will give away food, it will get more drinks had it made on its own. And similarly, if Northland will give away drinks to get food, it would have to give less drinks as compared to the drinks that it would had to give away had Northland not engaged in international trade and ended up making food itself. And that is why we say that the consumption possibilities exceed production possibility. Logic को समझना है, रट्टे बैठ के नहीं मारने हैं कि बस एक जुमला रट लिया आपने कि जी opportunity cost ratio जो होता है वो it should always be between the trade ratio should be. So 90% of students don't even know this logic, that why do we say opportunity cost, the trade ratio should be between the opportunity cost ratio. This is the reason why it should be between the opportunity cost ratio. And they have, I think in 2023 or 2024, somewhere in 2-3 past years, they have asked this sort of a question where they have asked the logic, which country is going to gain more? They have asked which country will gain more. अब अगर ये वाला जो रेशो है 1:3 वाला, ये जो रेशो है 1:3, अगर हम इस रेशो को देखें, एक उन्होंने they asked a question where they gave a ratio and then they asked that which country will basically gain more. And if you look at this ratio, basically, then what do you think? 1:3 का जो ratio है, this ratio 1:3, which country is it benefiting more? 1:3 का ratio, 1 food for 3 drinks, which country is it benefiting more? 1 food for 3 drinks. Is it benefiting Southland more or is it benefiting Northland more? 1 food for 3 drinks, which is it benefiting more? See, who will basically export food? So who will export food? Southland will export food. So this will benefit Southland, because for Southland is going to export 1 unit of food, but it will now get 3 drinks in return. Before it could only produce 1.6 drinks itself. So this will certainly benefit Southland. This will benefit Southland, but this will not benefit Northland. It will not benefit Northland because Northland would have to give away 3 units of drink to Southland, or just give away 3 units of drink, while previously Northland could not produce food and while previously Northland, in order to produce a unit of food, had to give away only 2.5 drinks. So Northland would be like, am I stupid that I am engaging in international trade with you, and am I stupid that I'm going to give away 3 units of a drink for just 1 food in return, while previously I could get that food myself and make it myself by only giving away 2.5 drinks. So this ratio is certainly going to benefit Southland but not benefit Northland. Why? Because this ratio is not in between the opportunity cost ratio. So the ratio has to lie between the opportunity cost ratio for trade to be mutually beneficial. यही पढ़ के आए थे ना पेपर 2 के लिए, रट्टे मारे थे ना उधर. अब समझ में आ गई लॉजिक? Clear? Has everyone got the logic? Let's not spend a lot of time here. Just wanted to clear things out. 26 not required to be done. Got it, guys? If that's a yes, please let me just write yes, because I invested a lot of time in explaining this. So if that's super duper clear, so just let me guys know. ठीक है? Just write a yes if it's clear. Moving forward, question number 27 says. Question number 27 is again a simple question. Tariff का question है. It's simply asking. It's saying that a tariff has been imposed, and they're asking you what's going to happen. So tariff is going to result into the domestic production to rise to OQ2. We know that domestic producers would be incentivized to produce at this particular price. They would increase domestic production by this amount. So the domestic level of production would be OQ2, while this would be the tax. This area would represent tax revenue, that is JKMN. So I think A should be the correct answer for question number 27. A should be the correct answer. Question number 28 which policy is most likely to increase the quantity of skilled labor? Which policy is most likely to increase the quantity of skilled labor? Which policy is most likely to increase the quantity of skilled labor? Question number 28, it's obviously supply side policy will increase the quantity of skilled labor, like training and all of that. Okay. Question number 29 says, a country has a long running, current account deficit on the BOP. Its government was using an expenditure switching policy, but decides to change to an expenditure reducing policy. What could have been an old policy? Oh, by the way, expenditure switching and reducing isn't really in your syllabus anymore, so you don't need to do that. Question 30, the government increases interest rates in order to reduce the rate of inflation. What will result from this action? If the government increases the interest rates, what will happen? What happens when the government increases the interest rates? So they're saying what is going to happen because of that. So the correct answer needs to be C. The currency will not depreciate, it will appreciate. Savings will not fall, savings will increase, because people would be incentivized to save more now. So reduction in economic growth, because it's a contractionary monetary policy, so economic growth is going to go down, right? So for 30, C is the correct answer. Now let's move on to variant 2. Let's discuss variant 2. Which statement which statement by a company is normative? Which statement by a company is normative? Question number 1. G. What will be the answer for question number 1? Which is normative? Is it a boy or is it Charlie? The correct answer for question number 1, the business has fallen behind competitors and needs to improve its ethical standards. The correct answer is boy, because it is expressing a value judgment or an opinion. And usually words like should, ought to, or words like indicate what oughts to be done is and are normative statements, because it's a subjective judgment. It's saying we need to improve the ethical sort of standard. So it's again a value judgment or an opinion, because it includes the word needs to improve, which is a subjective judgment. So boy is the correct answer. Got it? Question number 2, pretty simple question. Let's not put a lot of time here. The correct answer has to be David, Y1, Y2. Right? So pretty simple. Question number 3. Question number 3 says from 1995 to 2000 each. Yeah. From 1995 to 2000 each. What's happening is that from 1995 to 2000 each of the countries listed below moved towards a market economy through privatization programs. Which country made the slowest rate of transition? So you have the private sector share of GDP given, right? Ratio of private sector, how much is the private sector contributing to the GDP? So like Czech Republic, Hungary, Romania, Slovakia, right? And okay, so let's do one thing. So these are your percentages, right? It says private sector's share of GDP, which is like 70%, 80%, 60%. These are percentages, right? So let's do one thing. Let's calculate the changes. That is like, Czech Republic made how much was the percentage increase in Czech Republic's private sector earnings to GDP. So it went up by 10%, this went up by 10%, and this went up by 15%, and this went up by 20%, right? now, so the question is saying which country has made the slowest rate of transition. So technically C and D are incorrect because we are stuck with A and B, Czech Republic and Hungary, because they are tied up with they have the smallest numerical sort of change. So इसका आंसर क्या होगा? Is it A or B? What do you guys think? Is it going to be A or B? G. Is it going to be A or B? पहले तो ये बताएं ना अभी is it going to be A or B? यहाँ पे अभी we haven't finished with this question. So basically we know that if you look at Hungary, right? If you look at Hungary moved from 60 to 70%, right? So if you want to calculate so this is a change of 10%, I know, but what is the percentage? As in, if you want to calculate the percentage increase in the private sector share, how would we do that? So basically what we will do is that we are going to take the difference. That is how much? That is, there was a 10% jump, right? From 60. So it has to be like 10 upon, it increased by 10%. So we know that it went up by 10, but let's sort of take के कितने वो जो 10 से increase हुआ है, I mean it went up by 10, but then what's the percentage increase? So let's say 10 divided by, actually इसको करेंगे ये 10 divided by 60 times 100. So the percentage increase is how much? It's going up by 10%, but then relative to what the original was, how much is it increasing? So 10 divided by 60 times 100, right? That is 16.67. देखें आप ये समझें, ये तो सारे परसेंटेजेस में दिए हुए हैं ना आपको, 70%, 80%, 60, 70%. So हम basically what we are saying is कि ठीक है, it went up from 60 to 70%. So it's a 10% jump, but 10% increase जो है from the original, how much is that? So it's 16.67%, right? And same goes for, let's say, for Czech Republic, this should be 10 upon 70 times 100. This should be 10 divided by 70 times 100. This should be 14.3%. So basically, it would mean that A would be the correct answer. Because आप इसको यूँ समझें that, although you can say that both these countries, if you look at these two countries, Czech Republic and Hungary, if you look at them basically, so although both these countries have increased by the same, percentage, in the sense that, the change is 10%, but if you see Czech Republic's increase, the Czech Republic's increase was slower, it was lesser or slower in relative terms. उसका रीज़न ये है कि हमने 10 को यहाँ पे 70 से डिवाइड किया है और यहाँ पे हमने 10 को 60 से डिवाइड किया है, तो डिनोमिनेटर जब बड़ा करेंगे तो वैल्यू छोटी आएगी. एंड इसका जब ये तो मैथमेटिकल बात है, लेकिन इसकी लॉजिक ये है कि आप इसको यूँ लें कि चेक रिपब्लिक जो था ना ऑलरेडी ज़्यादा प्राइवेटाइज था 1995 में. चेक रिपब्लिक वॉज, listen to what I'm saying. Czech Republic was already contributing 70%. Czech Republic was already contributing 70% out of 100%. So although it went up by 10%, but the slowest rate of transition, अगर हम बात करें, 70 to 80% जाना और 60 to 70% जाने में फ़र्क है. Hungary was basically at 60%, and then from 62 it went to 70. So that's a 16.67% transition. सही है? So Czech Republic was already more privatized in 1995, and so the progress it made from 1995 to 2000, from 70 to 80%, so it sort of made less progress proportionally, right? So Czech Republic had the slowest transition rate if you consider, the starting point, and there obviously there's a 14.3% relative increase versus Hungary's increase. So that is why the correct answer should be A for alpha. Got it? ठीक है guys, do you understand? देखिए slowest rate of transition, इसको यूं समझो ना, एक बंदा आप समझ रहे हैं मैं आपसे क्या कहना चाह रहा हूं? Got it? Question number 4. I'll just silent my phone. The two kids are sending so many. Okay. The question number 4. A businesswoman sets up a charity to provide toys for young children of low-income families. Which term most accurately describes these toys? G. Question number 4. Toys are a private good. They are excludable. Not everyone can access them, even if it's a charity, right? They are rivalrous. If one child would have a toy, others can't use the same at one time, not at the same time. So definitely these are private goods, even if they are provided for free. ठीक है? So that is what makes 4C the correct answer. It's a toy. It involves factors of production to make it. So free goods तो हो ही नहीं सकते ये. Merit goods हो सकते हैं, it could be argued कि कुछ हो सकते हैं, but not always, so it's not the best answer. B is not the best answer. I mean, toys aren't inherently resulting into positive externalities, neither they would be underconsumed or beneficial like healthcare and medicine, so this is why it's not the correct answer. Question number 5, what will happen to an industry supply curve if new firms enter? So question number 5, what will happen to industry supply curve? It will shift to the right at any price, meaning that it's just shifting outwards at the same price. At every level of price, now producers would be able, there are more producers, so more output, simply. Question number 6. Question number 6 says, this question 6 has been repeated multiple times as well. It also came, I think, in 2024 year as well, in May, June 24 as well. Question 6, price of public transport is given quantitative. मैं आपको अभी से एक बात बताऊं, and I'm literally not going to lie, that in your exam, you'll feel that 5, 6, 7 MCQs were totally repeated in your answer. Literally, because CIs has a data bank of thousands and thousands of questions, and so they usually give 6, 7 MCQs. You will feel definitely that they are repeated. Question 6 का answer होगा D for David. Yes, question 6 would be D for David. The quality of the public transport decreases. So D for David is the correct answer, right? Because the demand curve is shifting to the left. Question number 7, two goods X and Y have a positive cross price elasticity. What will be the reduction in the price of good Y? What will be the cause of reduction in the price of good Y? So question number 7, if the price of good Y is going down and they have positive, so if they have a positive XCD, it means that X and Y are substitutes. ठीक है? So what will be the effect of a reduction in the price of good Y? It means that the price of good X will decrease because the demand for good X will fall. ठीक है? The lower the demand, so it will reduce the demand for good X and the price of good X is going to fall. That is what makes C the correct answer for question 7. Are we clear? Everyone, are we clear? ठीक है? Question number 8 says, what describes, ये तो बहुत easy है, which statement describes, खुद ही कर लेना इसको. Question number 9, the table shows changes in consumer expenditure on various goods when her income increases from 20,000 to 24,000. So if the income is going up and the amount expenditure is given, so amount spent is given, right? So you can actually assume that the price of all these goods is $1. So if you're spending 100 and the price is $1, So how many units are you going to buy? You're going to buy 100 units and 96 units and 100 and 100. So basically you can assume that every good is basically being sold at $1. And if every good is sold at $1, then 100 units are being bought. Similarly, you can just assume the price of good X, Y, Z as $1. So the यहाँ पे amount spent दिया हुआ, so you could, since amount spent is given, so you could actually arrive at the number of units, right? The consumer's price they're talking about the consumer's income elasticity of demand, and we know that the income elasticity of demand's formula is percentage change in, so what would be the answer, guys? The answer would be D for David, Z only, right? Got it? So greater than 1 है ना? So it can't be X because the units are the same, and it can't be W as well because it's decreasing, so the units are decreasing. So if it means that it either has to be Y or it either has to be Z. Okay, and for greater than 1 it is coming as Z because the elasticity should come up to 248. Okay guys, ho jayega na? I mean, this is pretty simple. So it should be Z. Question number 10. Question number 10 says the diagram shows the market for coca with a normal good. Initially, the market is in equilibrium with the price of PE and quantity of bought and sold. Which sequence of events must have occurred in order to move the new equilibrium at point X? बहुत simple. Demand is going up, supply is going down. So just check out the factors. Demand going up, supply going down. Demand going up, supply going down, and when would this happen? This is going to happen in David when there's a successful advertising campaign would increase demand, and increasing the indirect taxes would reduce the supply. So demand in option D is going up, supply in option D is going to go down. The rest of the options are incorrect. Okay. Question number 11 says good X and Y are complements and have upward sloping supply curves. What will be the effect on equilibrium price and quantity of an increase in supply of good Y? So the supply of good Y is going up. If the supply of good Y is going up, the price of supply of good Y is going up, the price of Y is going to go down. If the price of good Y is going to go down, people will buy more X, so demand for good X will go up because obviously good Y and good X are complements. So they are jointly demanded, right? So what is going to happen is that the price of okay. So what would be the answer? The quantity of just a second. $11 should be D for David, because the demand curve for D is going to shift outwards, which will increase the price and increase the quantity as well. Pretty simple MCQ. Question number 12. What is generally considered to be one of the advantages of using price mechanism as a rationing function? 12. Yes guys, 12. क्या होगा 12 का? What do you think is the answer to 12? What do you guys think is the answer to 12? So the correct answer to 12, you got D. Question 12, you're saying D? Are you sure 12 is D? I don't think it's D. G. Question number 12. So the correct answer is C for Charlie. No one can be prevented from consuming a good if they are willing and able to pay the market price. Obviously, because the role of the rationing function is to make the goods available, to whoever is willing to pay for it. And the way it makes it available is through increasing the price. And during a shortage, when the price goes up, obviously only those consumers would get the product who are willing to pay for it, who really realize the value of it. So that is a rationing function. That is what makes C the correct answer. Guys, C is the correct answer. A and B are not the correct answers. A is not the correct answer. B is not the correct answer. It ensures that goods are allocated in accordance with consumers' wants. This is not the rationing function at all. Okay? This is not the role of a rationing function. It is one of the roles of the price mechanism. You can say that, the price mechanism ensures that, goods are allocated as per the consumer's wants. Or the allocative function of the price mechanism. But this is not the rationing function, right? Or you could say that this is also somewhat related with the incentive function. As consumers are demanding something, so producer would be incentivized to produce it, but this is because of a higher price. This is not the rationing function though. Okay, rationing function is solely means that the amount of goods is made available to those who are willing to pay for it through higher prices. That's the job of the rationing function. To distribute the goods between those users who are willing to pay for it through price rationing. So the price does that job automatically. Like when price controls are imposed, as a minimum price is imposed, let's say, or max. So let's say you impose a minimum price that is above the equilibrium. You impose a maximum price that is below the equilibrium, right? So it will result into a shortage. Now here, price rationing cannot take place. Here the government would be involved in rationing, or the producers would ration based on giving preferences to its own consumers. Just in last class we मैंने बताया था about queuing. So these are all non-price rationing methods. I don't know, using coupons or something. Question number 13. The diagram shows a competitive market equilibrium with price and quantity. Which area represents producer surplus? ये हम already discuss कर चुके हैं, पिछली दफा भी आ चुका है. Producer surplus. This box is the total revenue to the producers minus this. If you deduct it with this area, so again you're left with this particular shaded area, that is the producer surplus. So that should be 13 should be what? 13 should be A for alpha. Question number 14. A government fixes a maximum price for wheat flour below the market equilibrium price. If the government is going to fix a maximum price below the market equilibrium price, what is going to happen is that producers' revenue is increased. No, producers' revenue is not increased. It says after the maximum price imposed, which statement is correct? Which statement is not correct? So yes, producers' revenue is decreased, not increased. So producers don't like that. So definitely A is the correct answer. Some consumers may encourage illegal sales, yes, because of shortages. So there could be consumers may resort to black markets due to shortages. So B is incorrect. C and D are incorrect as well. Quantity supplied is going to decrease, we know. Excess demand hogi, we know. So the rest are true. 15. The income tax structure of a country has two elements. The first 20,000 of earned income is not taxed, and then it says any income earned above 20,000 is taxed. The correct answer for question number 15 should be, yes guys, what should be the correct answer for question number 15? Yes, the correct answer to question number 15 should be A. किसका बता रहे हैं आप लोग? अच्छा, 15 को बताएं क्या होगा? What is the 15? What should be 15? So first of all, this is if you look at this question, question number 15, right? So what sort of a tax system do you think this is? What sort of is it a progressive tax system, proportional tax system, regressive tax system? What sort of a tax system this is? This is certainly a progressive tax system. It's a progressive tax system. Option A क्यों mark कर रहे हैं? Why are you marking option A? What's the reason for marking option A? Why not option B? Option B में भी तो they're saying progressive tax. First of all, this is a progressive tax system. So as a tax system, if the question was that what sort of a system is this, so you would have marked a progressive tax system. So it's a progressive tax system because the reason being that people with incomes above 20,000, they are taxed, but with people who are not eligible, for people who are less than 20,000, they are not taxed. So definitely it means that this system is considering taxing those individuals who can afford to pay. Let's say it is basically taxing people based on their ability to pay and looking at their income levels and their basically disposable incomes, right? So based on their ability to pay, it is taxing, right? So it's a progressive tax system. So either the answer has to be A or B. But the point is that B is incorrect because it says a progressive tax throughout the whole income range, right? Now, you have to understand that it's not progressive throughout the whole income range because the first 20,000 are not taxed, right? So it's not progressive throughout the whole income range because let's say if your income is, let's say, $1 and then your income is, let's say, $2 and let's say your income is $3 and let's say your income is $4. So it's not that for every incremental dollar you are now charged more tax. In fact, for the first $20,000 you're charged nothing. So let's say you're earning $10 or maybe even $1,000, you weren't charged anything. But from $1,000 to let's say $15,000, still you aren't charged anything. For every incremental dollar that you're getting, you are being taxed more. So ऐसा नहीं है that it's not that for every dollar the tax is progressing. So yes, the overall tax system is progressive in the sense that, you know, as the income levels go up after a certain threshold, the marginal rate of tax would increase and so on and so forth, and the average rate of tax will fall as the incomes go up. But then the thing is that although this system is progressive by design, I want you to hear this out very carefully. Although the system is the average rate of tax will also, it's a progressive tax system, so the average rate of tax will also increase as the income increases, and so would the marginal rate of tax. My bad. So the average rate of tax will go up as the income increases because it would mean that the tax burden would fall more on the rich as compared to the poor. That's what the average rate of tax shows us. The proportion of income being spent in tax. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of students were arguing, in the exam, when they gave this exam, and they were arguing that this is a progressive tax system. Well, this is a progressive tax system, but although the tax system is progressive by design, but option B is saying that, option B is claiming progressivity throughout the entire income range, which is incorrect. Because the first 20,000, option B is claiming progressivity throughout the entire income range, which is incorrect because the first 20,000 is completely untaxed. There's no tax on it. Okay? Isliye option A is the correct answer. Got it, everyone? Okay? Question number 16. But अगर आपसे ये पूछते that what sort of a tax system this is, अगर वो आपसे ये पूछते, if they would have asked you, because they have asked in some MCQs, then the answer would have been it's a progressive tax system. As a system, it's progressive. In 2014, Egypt reduced the subsidies on fossil fuels such as gas and diesel. If you reduce the subsidy, what is going to happen? The correct answer should be boy, because if you reduce the subsidy, the supply is going to fall. So simple, supply will fall. Okay? What is an aim of transfer payment? What does a transfer payment aims to achieve? The transfer payment basically allows for to alter the final distribution of income. That's the correct answer, because transfer payments, the aim of transfer payment is a redistribution of income for equity purposes. It wants to create more income equality, right? To reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. So 17 is A. 18, there have been recent calls for UK government to nationalize its railways. What would not be a reason for nationalizing the railway? Yeah, so what would not be the reason for nationalizing the railway? See, private rail companies often charge high ticket prices would be a reason for nationalizing the railway, because the poor people will not be able to afford. So this is the reason for nationalizing the railway. It's better to give the railway in the hands of the government. Private rail companies may exploit, again a reason. Railways are an essential part, again a reason. Railways should be treated as public good, not a reason. So 18, David is the correct answer. Question number 19 में the aggregate demand curve is shifting to the right. What might have caused this? The correct answer, a fall in budget deficit, because when the budget deficit goes down, it results in more expansionary impacts, because a fall in budget deficit only happens when you are no more concerned with austerity policies or contractionary fiscal measures and you want to expand the economy. So that's when the budget deficit, you enact a reduction, but maybe you've been having a budget surplus throughout, you have been having a budget surplus throughout, and now you want to reduce that budget surplus, and you want to say that this year, we're going to decrease that and come up with expansionary policy. So 19A is the correct answer. A fall in okay? And you would do that by increasing government spending and lowering your taxes, and that would basically result in a fall in budget deficit. Question number 20. G. How will you do question number 20? Question number 20 says the table shows the consumer price index and national output at current prices in 2014 and 15. What can be concluded when 2014 is compared to 2015? अब देखें answer options में, if you look at the answer options, they are talking about real national output. So if they're talking about real national output, that is, they're talking about real GDP. So you calculate real GDP. And the formula, so firstly, let's see what's happening here. The CPI in 2014 is 100, which is a base year. Then they have given national output at current prices. Now you know that the CPI, if national output is given at current prices, that is whatever the current. So basically, this is GDP. This is nominal GDP. National output at current prices, nominal GDP. Nominal GDP is always yes, Fahim, हम formula use करेंगे. Nominal GDP is measured at current prices, while real GDP is measured at base year prices, constant prices. Now, for 2014 में, 2015 में, the CPI, 2015 में, we can clearly see that, your national output at current prices 110, which is simply showing inflation. National output at current prices बढ़ रहा है, but then obviously हमें पता है inflation आ रही है. Inflation तो यहाँ से पता चली है, 20% price level is going up, and national output at current prices is going up, which actually we need to now figure out that whether the real GDP is going up or down. So we'll basically use the formula. We need to calculate the real GDP. देखें, real national output increase or real national output fell. We don't know that real national output increase or real national output fell, right? So we need to actually calculate the real GDP, and the formula to actually and if you look at option A, it says money national output decreased by 10%. So 100 say your basically national output index, the national output index, output ko they have basically taken the output, or they have taken the GDP at current prices. It would be in billions of dollars or rupees, and they have converted into an index number, because that's what index numbers does. They take large numbers and convert them into small numbers. So national output at current prices going up, which means that money national output is increasing, not decreasing. वो 10% से increase हो रहा है, it says decreasing, so this is not the answer. Money national output increased by 20%. This is also incorrect, because money national output went up by 10%, not 20%. So the answer has to be C or D. So we need to calculate real GDP. So the formula to calculate real GDP is, and I want you to write this down. And by the way, and listen to this very carefully, whether you are attending my live streams or not, I want you, in fact, I'll share a link with you guys. I basically want you guys to, there's this topical playlist on my YouTube channel regarding this particular topic. ये जो formula मैं आपको दे रहा हूँ, this formula is basically coming from the topic of national income. And last year, because last year students were very much confused in this topic, so what I did was that I did a topical video on national income statistics, and I am just going to share its link in the chat box. And this is the topical video playlist. Sorry, this is the video, and I have just shared it, and I want you all to watch it, because इस तरह के जो सवाल है ना सारे इस पूरे, this is a 1 hour video, 50-minute video, and it covers all these difficult questions with respect to GDP and real GDP calculation. So the formula that you'll use for real GDP is real GDP is equals to nominal GDP divided by the GDP deflator. You will deflate the GDP, you will deflate nominal GDP divided by the GDP deflator, right? And the formula for GDP deflator is, और मैंने उस वीडियो में पूरा बताया हुआ है कि ये सारे formulas आपको याद होने चाहिए. I've given all the formula list as well. There are 4 formulas that I've given. I want you to watch this video that I've sent in the link. GDP deflator का formula होता है CPI in the current year divided by CPI in the base year. So let's calculate the GDP deflator. What is CPI in the current year, guys? I want you to participate. What is CPI in the current year? It is 120, because the current year is 2015. Divided by CPI in the base year is 100. So the GDP deflator would come up to 1.2. So this is the GDP deflator. Now we are calculating the real GDP in 2015, right? Which simply means that the nominal output is 110. Okay? The nominal output is 110, and you will basically divide that by 1.2. So what you will do is that you will divide 110 by 1.2. So what is the answer? If you divide 110 by 1.2, that is a GDP deflator. What do you get? What value are you getting, guys? Students, what value are you getting if you divide 110 by 1.2? What value are you getting? G, what value are you getting by dividing 110 divided by 1.2? क्या value आ रही है? Students, 91.6 आ रही है सबकी? So you clearly see कि आपका देखें ये जो 100 है ना, you need to understand this. This 100 is basically your real GDP as well. देखें base year में GDP and real GDP is the same. In the base year there is no inflation. Prices are constant. There is no inflation in the base year. There is no zero inflation in the base year. So the GDP and real GDP are the same. So this is my real GDP index. This is my real GDP index in the base year. And my real GDP index goes down from 100 to 91.6. Sorry. My real GDP index goes down from 100 to 91.6. Now, if my real GDP index goes down from 100 to 91.6 or 91.67, it means my real national output fell. It didn't increase. It means my real national output fell. So the correct answer to question number 20 is C, and this has to be calculated using the real GDP formula. Okay, students, do you get it? And you must watch the video I have sent in the group chat, and you can also share it with your friends so that they can as well watch it. Question number 21 says, between June and the end of July, the pound depreciated against UK's major trading currencies. The diagram shows the original AD and the AS curves. The equilibrium is X. What will be the new equilibrium for the UK economy as a result of depreciation? So we know that depreciation results into a rise in the price of imports and a fall in the price of exports, and that basically increases net exports, and hence it increases AD, and as a result it would shift the aggregate demand curve to the right. And so if the AD goes to the right, if the AD shifts outwards, what will happen? If the aggregate demand shifts outwards from AD1 to AD2, so the correct answer actually, the correct answer is A, because there's one more thing happening here, which is showing that there's also cost push inflation. Because if imports get expensive due to currency depreciation, and you purchase expensive imports, then it means that there's cost push inflation. Now, see, B and C cannot be the answer because AD is shifting left here. So it's either A or and it can't be D as well, because in D, aggregate supply is shifting to the right. AD is shifting outwards and aggregate supply is shifting to the right as well. Okay? So it means definitely the currency depreciation. So the question arises, how do we know that there's an impact on AS as well? How can we judge that? We have to look at the answer options given. The answer option is clearly the equilibrium is at a point where AS is shifting as well for A and D both, which means that we need to, okay? So that is why we have to understand that how can we infer there is no inflation in the base year? See, this is again a conceptual problem, beta. I mean, मैं क्या बताऊँ उसमें? This topic, when you have to study this topic, I mean, we don't infer that. In what is a base year? Base year is the year where there is no inflation. Base year is our year where there is no inflation. This is the year where there is no inflation. Please check out my YouTube videos on GDP, real GDP, and the national income statistics. I feel disappointed. There's already a video, and students should not be asking questions for those things that already a video is there. So जाके video देखा करो ना. जब videos डली हुई होती हैं तो ना डली हुई हो तो फिर आप बोलें. I mean, I'm not saying it out specifically to you, but I'm just saying that, I mean, how there's no inflation in the base year because that's a comparing year ना. So हम जब base year लेते हैं तो हम यही बोलते हैं कि भाई वो एक normal year ले रहे हैं हम, where there is price stability, neither very high inflation, neither very low prices, and we're just taking it. And because you want to make it the year where, because from there onwards we're going to calculate inflation, therefore we have to take the base year as a year with zero inflation. अब एक सवाल आया है, how base year is always 100. Sir, how to like prepare for paper 1 in 9 days? मतलब what a joker question of the year. Like हम 4 दिन से streams कर रहे हैं, मतलब यहाँ पे 1 हफ्ते से streams कर रहे हैं, बल्कि रोज़ 3-3 घंटे की streams हो रही हैं. And like how to prepare, कैसे prepare करेंगे? Like if I ask you how to drive a car, what will you say? Learn to drive. Practice driving, drive it 3-4 times, you'll make hundreds of errors, and then ultimately you'll end up learning. So there's no way to do things. You just need to do it. There's no way. These are MCQs. You have to practice the MCQs. The more, the better. देखिए पेपर 1 में ना, पेपर 2 में जो ऐसे के पेपर्स होते हैं, उसका एक स्ट्रक्चर होता है, इंट्रोडक्शन, एनालिसिस, एवैल्यूएशन, कंक्लूजन, उसका जजमेंट, उसका एक स्ट्रक्चर होता है. पेपर 1 में क्या स्ट्रक्चर है? पेपर 1 MCQ पेपर है, आपने 1000 MCQs की प्रैक्टिस करें, 500 MCQs की प्रैक्टिस करें, आपके ऊपर है. So you need to practice the MCQs. There's no way to do it. There is no shortcut कि 9 days में मुझे कोई शॉर्ट फॉर्मूला बता दें. ऐसा कोई फॉर्मूला नहीं है. ठीक है. 22. Which item is not included in the current accounts balance of payment? Which item is not included in current accounts balance of payment? Yes, question number 22. The correct answer is D for David, because the purchase of foreign assets will be included in the capital and the financial account. ठीक है? Purchase of foreign assets are included in the capital account, और अगर short term assets हैं like bonds, stocks, so that would be short term financial assets would be included in the financial account. And your what do you say, FDI as well. तो current account में नहीं आता ये. Current account is only export of services, trade in goods and services, primary income, secondary income, that's all. Question number 23 says a government wishes to raise the value of its external exchange rate of its currency. What should it do? अच्छा, दूसरी चीज, एक तो पहले वैल्यू ऑफ द करेंसी का मतलब होता है उसकी डोमेस्टिक करेंसी की वैल्यू, दैट इज उसकी how much that currency can buy domestically. So that is determined by the purchasing power of the currency or the inflation, but the external value is the exchange rate. ठीक है, तो ये फर्क होता है, इसको समझ लीजिएगा. 23, what should it do? If it wants to increase, it should raise the interest rates. Increasing interest rates would attract capital inflows, that is hot money inflows, increase the demand for domestic currency, and hence appreciate the domestic currency. 23 should be boy. 24 छोड़ दें. 25, the index of a country's terms of trade change from 100 to 104. If the terms of trade index goes up, it simply means, it simply means what? It simply means that the terms of trade index is going up. Simply, it could mean the denominator in numerator, price of exports going up, index of export prices going up, or the index of import prices going down, right? Or maybe the index of export prices going up by more than the index of import price. So it could either be because the index of export price is going up, or the index of import price is going down, or it could be that both are going up. The export prices are going up and the import prices are going up, but export prices are going up by more. So what could have caused this change? The correct answer to 25 should be what? Appreciation of the currency, because appreciation of the currency would make your imports cheaper, and it would make your exports expensive. So the numerator in the terms of trade formula, if this is the formula for terms of trade, x upon y equals to TOT. X upon y means index of export prices upon index of import prices, simply. So if the numerator is going up and the denominator is going down, terms of trade should improve. Okay, then got it? So the correct answer has to be C. Question number 4. अब देखें यहाँ पे मैंने जो इतना टाइम लगाया था, वहाँ पे मैंने आपके साथ बहुत टाइम लगाया था नॉर्थ लैंड और साउथ लैंड पे. वो इसलिए लगाया था ताकि आप इस क्वेश्चन को समझ सकें. अब यहाँ now you will actually answer me this question. Question number 26. The table shows the production possibilities of cloth. And मेरे सामने ना मुझे ये नहीं कहना कि opportunity cost ratio should the terms of trade ratio should lie between the opportunity cost ratio. मुझे reason देना that why should opportunity cost ratio lie between the terms of trade ratio. I don't think I'm lagging. Am I lagging? I don't think so. Yes, what is the correct answer? The table shows the production possibilities of clothes and food in 4 countries. If the world exchange rate is 1 unit of food for 6, with whom we is likely to trade? We will not trade with 2 countries. I mean, if you want to compare the exchange, if you want to look at how David Ricardo's theory of comparative advantage works and who benefits from trade, then we are taking 2 countries here. So we're not taking 3 countries here. So we need to figure out between 2 countries. So we can even try to figure out between X and Y and Z even, but okay, so let's try to understand how are we going to do this question. पहले तो आप सबसे पहले क्या करेंगे? What you will do is that you will calculate the opportunity cost ratios. And they get 1 unit of food for 6 clothing, na? So if the exchange ratio is that you want to exchange 1 unit of food for 6 units of clothing, then calculate the opportunity cost ratio for every unit of food. So for every unit of food, the opportunity cost ratio should come up to 5:1. This should come up to 7:1. This should come up to 4:1, and this should come up to 1:1. Now the question says that with whom is V likely to trade? Let's say that whether we will, so let's see whether we will trade with X or not. Let's see that whether we will trade with X or not. Let's see whether we will trade with X or not. And how will we do that? Very simple. V and X को ले रहे हैं यहाँ पे 5:1, 7:1. Does the opportunity cost ratio, that is, how much is the opportunity cost ratio? 1:6. So 1 unit of food with 6 units of clothing. Do you think the opportunity cost ratio lies in between the trade ratio lies in between the opportunity cost ratio? Does it? Yes, it does. It lies between the opportunity cost ratios. So trade is mutually beneficial. Trade will mutually beneficial V and X both. Trade will mutually beneficial V and X both. Okay? And here V is going to specialize in food. V will specialize in food and X will specialize in clothing. And if V specializes in food, because it can produce food at a lower opportunity cost, so V will specialize in food, and V is going to give away food to X, and in return V will get 6 units of clothing from X. And if V would have made clothing itself, it would have only made 5 units of clothing. So definitely it is benefiting V. While X ko bhi, it's also benefiting X, because X will specialize in clothing, and X X will give away 6 units of clothing, while if X produced clothing, if X क्या कहते हैं, if X basically did not produce clothing itself, sorry, if X gave away clothing by not producing clothing and it sort of made food, then X would have given up 7 units of clothing to sort of get 1 unit of food, but now X will only give away 6 units of clothing away, which means it will give up less. So it's also benefiting X, because it's benefiting X because X is giving away less clothing but getting the same food. While if X produced clothing, if X produced food itself, it would have had to give away 7 units of clothing, but now it only has to give away 6. And it's benefiting V as well, because V will get more clothing by giving away the same food. So definitely V should trade with X. So definitely V should trade with X. We have concluded that. Now should we trade with Y? Should we trade with Y? If you look at the opportunity cost ratios, 5:1, 4:1. अब हम हर उसकी डिटेल में नहीं जा रहे, अब हम सबकी मैथमेटिकली सारे की लॉजिक्स प्रूव नहीं करेंगे, बैठ के इतना टाइम नहीं है, वो आप खुद देख लो. लेकिन मैंने आपको फिर भी समझा दिया है लॉजिकली भी. अच्छा, what is a trade ratio? Trade ratio is 6:1. Is it lying between the opportunity cost ratio? No, it is not lying in between these opportunity cost ratio. So such a ratio will benefit V, but it will not benefit X. It will benefit V, but not X. So trade will between, sorry, no, ये क्या कर रहा हूँ मैं यार, ये Y है ना, आप लोग कुछ बताते भी नहीं है कि यहाँ क्या सर आप कर रहे हैं, आप थोड़ा सा बता दिया करें if I make a mistake. Anyways, so this will benefit V, but this will not benefit Y. Okay, it will benefit V but not Y. Why will it benefit V? Because V will get 6 units of clothing by giving away 1 food, and previously by giving away 1 food it was only making 5 clothing, so it's benefiting V. But बेटा इसमें इतने हंजला पूछ रही हैं कि इसमें MCQ में इतना टाइम कैसे मैनेज करेंगे. इसमें हम एग्जाम में आपको मैं यहाँ पे इसमें टाइम लगा रहा हूँ, यहाँ पे मैं आपको एक एक वो समझा रहा हूँ, आपको मैं थॉट प्रोसेस डेवलप कर रहा हूँ. हम यहाँ पे टाइम लगा रहे हैं. एग्जाम में तो फौरन मुझे नज़र आ रहा है, इधर तो मुझे फौरन नज़र आ रहा है. मैं फटाफट रेशोज अगर लिख दूँ, ये देखें, मैं अगर ये रेशोज सारे लिख दूँ तो हमने देख लिया वी वाई के साथ नहीं करेगा, बिकॉज रेशो इन बिटवीन नहीं है. तो इतना हम एग्जाम में थोड़ी मेंटली टाइम लगाएंगे कि यूं है. वो तो सिर्फ मैं आपका थॉट प्रोसेस डेवलप कर रहा हूँ कि आपको किसी सवाल तो किसी भी तरह आ सकता है. अगर MCQ उन्होंने ज़रा भी घुमाया, इफ दे सॉर्ट ऑफ ट्विस्टेड द MCQ एंड दे आस्क्ड यू समथिंग दैट देन व्हाट विल यू डू? सो MCQ could come anyway either, right? तो आपको लॉजिक तो पता होनी चाहिए ना, खाली ये रट्टा तो नहीं लगाना कि बस बीच में होना चाहिए. लेकिन यहाँ पे ये वर्क कर रहा है, मतलब इन द सेंस कि इतना टाइम इसमें नहीं लग रहा. क्यों नहीं लग रहा? बिकॉज आपने ये रेशियोज निकाले फटाफट और फिर आपने देखा किसके बीच में लाई कर रहा है, v और x के बीच में. तो v और x के बीच में है, v और y के बीच में नहीं है. v और z के बीच में भी देख लो, ये है 5:1 and this is 1:1. So again 6:1 is not lying in between. तो आपने करना क्या है कि आपने इस तरह का टेबल बनाना है and you have to calculate, basically you have to see, you have to keep the exchange ratios in between the opportunity cost ratios, and if the exchange ratio lies in between the opportunity cost ratio, then it is benefiting, otherwise it is not. एग्जाम में इतना सोचना नहीं होगा मैं बैठ के वहां पे. तो हमें क्लियरली नजर आ रहा है कि सिर्फ एक्सचेंज रेशो कौन से कंट्री के अपॉर्चुनिटी कॉस्ट रेशियोज के बीच में we can clearly understand that the exchange ratio is lying in between the opportunity cost ratios when V and X are trading each other. So the trade will take place only between V and X. So the correct answer is B. Got it? In the exam, we are not supposed to think all of like this. But the reason why I was pinpointing it right now was because I was 100% dead sure that you guys are not aware of this concept. 27. The diagram shows the demand. So this is how you will do it in the exam. Okay, so the diagram shows the demand and world supply. The government imposes a tariff on imports of the good. What will happen to the quantity of imports? The imports will fall. ये तो हो जाएगा ना. Imports will fall from purani, old and new imports. We all know what the old and new imports are. So the correct answer for this would be what? This would be boy. Q1, Q5 are the old imports. It falls to Q2, Q4. So very simple. Boy is the correct answer. What is an example of supply side policy? What is an example of supply side policy? David is the example. A subsidy is a supply side policy. All the rest are not supply side policies. Got it? Import quota is a protectionist policy, not a supply side. The rest is monetary and fiscal. 29 छोड़ दें. 30. Do 30. Question number 30. 30. The correct answer to question number 30 would be C for Charlie, because they're saying for reducing inflation in a closed economy. So for reducing inflation, you need to come up with a contractionary fiscal policy, which is increasing the budget surplus, and contractionary monetary involves increasing the interest rate. So we are done with variant 2 as well. Okay, we're done with variant 3 as well. We're done with variant 2 as well. And now this is variant 1. And let's complete variant 1 as well. Let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll get back. Variant 1 mein there are at least 2 MCQs or 3 MCQs that are technical. The rest is not very easy, but a bit average, and some of them are difficult only. So let's finish variant 1, but after a 10-minute break I'll go for a water break and then I'll come back. Okay, but ये ख़त्म करके जाएंगे. Okay, ये ख़त्म करके जाना है. You only have a week left. ठीक है, बीच में 2 days ईद के भी आ रहे हैं. So factor that in as well, that उन 2 दिनों में, on those 2 Eid days probably you will not be able to study. Okay, so 10-minute break and we are back. Okay, guys, we are back. Let's quickly wrap up this paper. And I hope you guys are aware that you guys have your mock on the 2nd. Yeah, on the tomorrow's what? Tomorrow's like the 1st, right? No, tomorrow's 31st. So you will have your first mock exam with me on the 2nd in the night. No, I'm in around 7:30ish or 8 o'clock. Okay, and we're gonna be keeping these mocks hopefully all the way till the end. Question number. So let's start. Question number 1 says the demand for a certain product. Demand for product is inversely related. So the correct answer is A. Factors affecting demand are held constant. So pretty simple. I mean, ceteris paribus simply means other things keep being constant. So price is the only thing that is changing here. So we are keeping all the factors constant. Other factors are shift demand. What is not an example of the role of factor enterprise in a modern economy? So the correct answer for question number 2 would be, what is not an example? Deciding on new export markets bhi nahi hoga, because choosing export markets is showing that you're doing some sort of a strategic planning. That enterprise is involved here. Reducing cost by through the introduction of new shift. This involves innovation, decision making. Enterprises involved. Transforming production robots. Introduction of robots is again, transformation is a classic enterprise role. So again, B is the correct answer. Making payments to suppliers for raw material and capital goods. This is a routine function under management or administration. This is not an entrepreneurial role. Okay? Enterprise refers to the coordination and risk taking role abilities, right? So this is not a, this is a routine. Essentially the enterprise would be involved in organizing resources, innovating, making strategic decisions. This is what an enterprise does. Okay? Question number 3. Question number 3 says, the production possibility curve. Question number 3 says the production possibility curve shows the ability of 4 economies to, produce trucks and cars, and in which economy is the opportunity cost of producing car the lowest. So in which economy is the opportunity cost of producing cars the lowest? So in which economy is it the lowest? In basically it is the lowest in which is it the lowest in A, B, or C? Yeah. So so let's see. Opportunity cost of producing cars, right? So if we produce in country A, the opportunity cost of producing one car is 1 truck, and in country B, the opportunity cost of producing a car is 4 trucks. In C, the opportunity cost of producing one car would be 3 upon 3 divided by 5, that is 0.6. 3 upon 6, that is 2. My bad. 2 trucks, right? And in country D, the opportunity cost of producing a car would be right, the opportunity cost of producing a car would be like what? Would be 6 divided by 5, so that should be 1.2 trucks. So the correct answer should be A. The opportunity cost is the lowest of producing a car is the lowest in country A. Got it? A is the correct answer. Everyone clear? Okay, A is the correct answer. Question number 4. जॉन सेल्स, वैसे मनी का क्वेश्चन है, मतलब अब नहीं है, टॉप आएगा नहीं है, बट which function of money is being illustrated here? It's unit of account, because this person Aisha is offering tutoring for $20 an hour and John is selling cakes for $10 an hour. So I mean, unit of account is involved because you're actually able to measure and compare the value of goods and services. So but again, it's not paega nahi. Question number 5. The demand curve has shifted to the right. What would cause the demand curve for student places at universities? What would cause the shift? So the correct answer has to be C, an increase in graduate earnings compared with non-graduate earnings. So automatically more people would enter into universities because the expected financial return from higher education has gone up. So there's higher perceived value of going to university. So yeah, sahi hai. Question number 6. In the diagram, the area OPM1, the area OPM1 is equal to area OPM2. So what is the price elasticity of demand if the price is halved from OP1 to OP2? So the price elasticity of demand is equal to 1. It is infinity, because the reason being is that it clearly says that this area is representing total expenditure, and if this area has to be equal to this area, then we know that when the price goes up or down, the total expenditure or total revenue remains the same. So if both these areas are equal, the PED equals to 1. So 6A is the correct answer. Is the elasticity, it's unitary elastic. Got it? Because the expenditure and the revenue areas are, the expenditure and the revenue remains the same, whatever the percentage change in price is, because quantity changes by it changes by the same proportion. The percentage change in quantity is exactly equal to the percentage change in price, hence revenue and quantity was the same, revenue and expenditure. 7. Which elasticity value indicates that cars are normal goods and petrol is a complement to the car use? See, YD positive hogi, so YD is positive, so car is a normal good. So the answer has to be either A or B. YD has to be positive for normal goods. So the answer has to be C or D. And the correct answer is C, because XCD has to be negative. If car is a normal good, YD has to be positive. But if petrol is a complement, then XCD with respect to car has to be negative. For complements, simply it has to be negative, because if the car price would rise, then fewer cars would be bought, but then less petrol would be used. So the correct answer for 7 is C for Charlie. Right? Question number 8 says, what is necessary in order to calculate the price elasticity of supply when its price changes? Again, this is a simple question. The correct answer is C. We need the original price and new market price, the quantity supplied original price and new market quantity. Very easy. Question number 9. The government fixes a minimum price for a product above the current equilibrium price. What is the value of the product's PES will result into the smallest excess supply in the market? Okay, so you see, the government is imposing a minimum price, right? The minimum price is always imposed above the equilibrium price, right? The minimum price is imposed above the equilibrium price. So if the minimum price is imposed above the equilibrium price, right, then if there's no change in supply, it would the only reduction happens in demand, right? So they're saying that for which value will result in the smallest excess supply. So the smallest excess supply would happen when there's no change in supply, and that would happen when the PES is perfectly inelastic, equal to 0, because it means that quantity supply does not increase even the price rises. देखें, ideally होता क्या है कि when the minimum price is imposed, when the price goes up, the quantity demanded goes down, but the quantity supplied goes up as well. So this difference together causes that excess supply. But if quantity supplied will not go up, then the excess supply would still happen, but then it would only be happening because of the downfall or the contraction in quantity demanded, right? So D for David is the correct answer. Question number 10 says the demand for a good falls at the same time as its cost of production decreases. What will be the combined effect of these changes on price and quantity and on quantity supplied of the good? Yes, what will be the correct answer? बेटा आपको ज़्यादा तकलीफ हो रही है तो प्लीज़ आप ना देखें स्ट्रीम, आप खुद से कर लें मुश्किल वाले. आप प्लीज़ मुझे ना बताएं किस तरीके से चलाना है. सही है. The demand for the good falls at the same time as its cost of production decreases. So what will be the combined effect of these? बहुत सारे बच्चे बाद में भी स्ट्रीम देखते हैं और उनको प्रॉब्लम होती है. So please, okay. The demand for the good falls at the same time as its cost of production decreases. What will be the combined effect of these changes on the price and quantity supplied of the good? The correct answer for question number 10 has to be boy. And what will happen is that when the price will decrease, the quantity supplied. हाँ जी, the correct answer is का boy होगा, because the reason being that the demand is falling and that would reduce the quantity being traded had supply not changed. But since the supply is changing as well, so you need to understand कि इसका diagram कुछ इस तरह बनता है. And I remember that I taught this diagram to my students where the demand is going up and the supply is going down. And so what is happening is that you move from A to B. You move from A to B, then you move from C. Technically, the price is going up. The price is going up, but the quantity is not changing, right? The quantity is still the same. So the reason why the quantity is still the same is because, it's not the same, because it could be the same, but if they both change by the same proportion, but whether the quantity traded, final quantity being bought and sold in the market will go up or down depends upon the relative magnitude of the shift. And since that is not really clear by the question, there's a simultaneous increase and decrease in demand and supply. So we really don't know the impact on quantity, whether the quantity will go up or whether the quantity will go down. Maybe the demand rises by a much larger proportion. Maybe something like this. Maybe demand goes up like this, while the supply goes down by only this. So in this case as well, the price will go up, but then the quantity will go up because the demand has gone up by a large proportion. And if supply went down by a large proportion, the quantity would go down. Price, so in any case, will go up. Sorry, my bad. Demand fall हो रही थी ना. Sorry, my bad. I thought the demand is going up. The demand was falling, right? The demand was falling, so demand is falling, but at the same time, the cost of production. अच्छा बिल्कुल उल्टा, तो सही है, तो ठीक है, मतलब उसका effect फिर भी quantity पे uncertain नहीं आएगा, because मैंने demand और supply में relative वो कर दिया, but anyways quantity पे फिर भी effect would be uncertain. So what will happen is, but price would decrease because, so quantity पे impact would be uncertain because the simple reason is that your demand is going down, but then your supply is going up. So somehow this is the diagram that we are actually making here. ठीक है? So this is your price, so your price goes down, but the impact on quantity is uncertain. So question number 10 is boy. Okay? The reason being that your quantity supplied is sort of uncertain because you don't know, because it depends upon the relative magnitude of the shift in demand and supply. Okay, question number 11 says the final of a major sports event is held in a stadium which has the capacity of 40,000 people. The price for a seat is at PF, but when tickets go on sale very quickly, with many disappointed people unable to buy, which diagram represents this? The correct answer, obviously, it has to be B, because again, it's supply is fixed at 40,000. So C or D तो हो ही नहीं सकते ना. Supply fixed है तो the supply curve has to be vertical, right? So excess demand is happening at boy. So ठीक है. That's why B is the correct answer. Question number 12. The government in the diagram S and S1 are supply curves for an agricultural product in the year 1 and year 2. In year 1, the government purchased an amount necessary to ensure that the price was OP. So, what is going to happen? In year 1, the government purchased an amount necessary to ensure that the price was OP. So, what would be the answer? क्या करोगे बेटा इसमें? जल्दी बताओ क्या आंसर होगा? How much would the government purchase? Ariha says XZ. Simran says XZ. Chaji. XZ? Question number 12 है ये. The correct answer is not XZ. The correct answer is YZ. You all are wrong. The correct answer is YZ, not XZ. उसकी वजह ये है कि आप पहले समझ लेते हैं इसमें हो क्या रहा है. तो देखें इसमें लिखा हुआ है इन ईयर वन द गवर्नमेंट परचेज एन अमाउंट नेसेसरी टू इंश्योर दैट द प्राइस वाज पी. देखें सो सिंपल सी बात है, ईयर वन में इक्विलिब्रियम वाज दिस वाज द इक्विलिब्रियम प्राइस, बट ऑब्वियसली द गवर्नमेंट इन ऑर्डर टू इंश्योर स्टेबल इनकम्स टू फार्मर्स सेड दैट भाई ठीक है हम आपको दिस इज द प्राइस. ठीक है, सो इस प्राइस पे if this is the price, this is the minimum price that the government has imposed, and if at a minimum price it results in excess supply. Now the government would be like, okay fine, you know what, remember I remember teaching my students about something that is known as intervention buying. Remember if any of our students are attending right now, we talked about intervention buying in minimum price, where we said that this excess supply would be bought by the government. So in year one the government would enter as a buyer of this buffer, whatever this buffer stock is, excess supply hai na ye. So the government would basically increase demand coming as a buyer, and the demand curve would go outwards, and hence the government would end up sort of buying all of this stock, right? So again the producers would be happy because they'll get P, they'll get revenues of P, and they'll able to sell everything at Y. So technically they're actually increasing demand by WZ. Increasing demand by WZ means buying all of that buying all that WY. So they'll buy all of that WY. Now in year two again supply goes up. In year two again the supply goes up. So now basically what they're saying is that if supply goes up, you see the problem is that if supply goes up, right, and again there is this difference that is being created, right? So now if the government removes this minimum price, the market price will fall, and this will be the equilibrium because now you have a surplus. But then the government will not allow the market price to fall. The government will make sure that OP is the price. But the problem with OP is that at OP there is an excess supply at OP, right? There's an excess supply at OP. So now the government needs to buy up all that surplus because it needs to ensure that it basically needs to ensure that the government buys all of that surplus that it has promised to the producers. So it says that the price in OP is held. The price is held at OP in year two. So what the government will do is that the government is going to enter again as a buyer, and it will shift the demand curve again outwards as a buyer. So all of this would be purchased by the government, that is YZ. Okay, so that is what makes David the correct answer. Everyone clear? Okay, everyone clear on this? Question number 13 says the diagram shows the European airline market. The demand curve is D1 and D2. बेटा पीछे वाला को MCQ क्लियर है कि नहीं है मुझे बताएं ताकि हम आगे इस पे वी मूव फॉरवर्ड. So question number 13 says the diagram shows the European airline demand and supply curves are given. What area shows consumer and producer surplus at the new equilibrium? So you have consumer surplus, you have producer surplus, you have consumer and producer surplus, and then it says which area shows consumer and producer surplus at the new equilibrium. Samra, then you need to watch my video on buffer stock beta. आप buffer stock schemes की वीडियो देखें, थोड़ा बहुत आपको आइडिया हो जाएगा. Then you will be able to solve this MCQ. The diagram shows the European airline market and क्या है इसमें. अच्छा, consumer producer बहुत simple है. Demand increase हो चुकी है. Again the demand has gone up. So just look at the new demand curve. So all of this distance above the price under the new demand curve would be the consumer surplus. This is your big triangle, is your consumer surplus, while the producer surplus would be the area above the price and under the above the supply under the price, which would be, so this blue triangle would be your consumer surplus. Sorry, producer surplus. So blue is producer surplus, red is consumer surplus, and that is, I think, FMH is consumer surplus, producer surplus is HM and J. So 13 should be A for apple, right? 13 should be A for apple. Question number 14 says the diagram shows demand and supply curve of a good. Um, the diagram shows the demand and supply curve of a good. The government fixes a maximum price of OP1. What would happen if the government fixes a maximum price of OP1? Then, you know, what will happen? Yes, consumers would have to be rationed a quantity of OQ1. The government would have to introduce subsidy. Okay. So, पहली चीज, okay. Yes. So the government fixes a maximum price of OP1. A maximum price. So when the maximum price is fixed below the equilibrium, right? Whenever the maximum price is fixed below the equilibrium, it sort of creates an excess demand, right? Now, the thing is that this maximum price that we're talking about is basically resulting into, it's basically above the equilibrium, it's basically above the equilibrium, right? So whenever the maximum price is above the equilibrium, it is ineffective. And so in this case, question number 14, the market equilibrium would be OQ, because the maximum price above the equilibrium is always ineffective, and we are already aware of this. So Ariha A nahi hogi, A answer nahi hai, it's C. C for Charlie, because it's ineffective, right? Maximum price above the equilibrium is always ineffective. Okay? So C is the correct answer for question 14. 15, it says the government decreases the tax rate on goods and services and increases the tax rate on incomes. What is the likely outcome? So if you are increasing the tax rate on, if you are decreasing the tax on goods and services, you are actually making the income distribution more progressive and more equal. So 15 should be 15 would be distribution of income would be more equal, and the distribution of income would be more equal, and incentive to work would decrease. So 15C is the correct answer. Okay? 15C is the correct answer. The distribution of income would get more equal, and because you're decreasing the tax on goods and services, so tax on goods and services is an indirect tax like GST, it's regressive in nature. So if you're reducing it, you're actually making the distribution of income more equal. Question number 16 says the diagram shows the equilibrium price and quantity that is being purchased, which represents the producer benefit after the subsidy is granted, and what is the government expenditure. Now the producer benefit is basically represented, this is the entire this region is your government subsidy, ठीक है, and इसमें से जो producer benefit होता है, that is basically this part is your producer benefit, ठीक है, the producer gain from the subsidy, and this part, the below part, this part is your consumer gain from the subsidy, ठीक है. So basically the producer gain from the subsidy is P1 P3 LM, P1 P3 LM, and the government expenditure on the subsidy is this entire big rectangle, P2 P3 LM, P2 P3 LM. So the correct answer should be, for 16, it should be what? It should be D for David. For 16, the correct answer should be David. Okay. Question number 17, when is a transfer payment most likely to be an individual's main source of income? The transfer payment for an individual's main source of income would always be when that dude is unemployed, he has nothing else to do, so he's relying on transfer payments. That is when it will be his main source of income. Transfer payments. So again, question number 18 nationalization par hai. which argument supports nationalization? That is, which argument supports the fact that industries should be state owned? It avoids wasteful duplication of resources. Yes, because sometimes we have such industries like gas and utility and electricity that should be better run by the government instead of too many distribution companies of electricity. So that would just result into wasteful duplication of resources. It's better that they should be handled by a single supplier and a single seller and a single producer, because it will reduce the because for certain industries like gas supply, utility, gas supply, electricity supply, water supply, the utilities की जो supply होती है इनमें बहुत fixed cost इनकी fixed cost is very high. At the same time, they are all using the same fixed infrastructure. So it's better that, said we shouldn't have the duplication of that same fixed infrastructure for all these. So market competition might result into projects that might result into projects that might start but might not be completed, and it would just result in maybe redundant projects. So again, technically what we're saying is that certain industries should always be run in the hands of the government, and this because it would avoid wasteful duplication of resources. It's just not required to be run by the private sector because of heavy infrastructure involvement that is involved, right? So that is what makes nationalization जो है, always remember that nationalization can actually reduce the duplication of fixed infrastructure like roads and railways. It should be nationalized, while market competition in these industries can just cause projects that will be not started but not finished, or just incomplete redundant projects. So wasteful duplication avoid karega. Question number 19. The table illustrates macroeconomic data. What is the equilibrium real GDP? Okay. Is it better? Just give me 1 minute में हो जाएगा सही, वो खुद ही हो जाएगा. Is it better now? Okay, guys. I hope the internet connection is a bit better. Can you all? I hope it's not lagging anymore. So is it a bit better? गाइस इमेज लैग हो रही है तो अगर इमेज लैग हो रही है और वॉइस सही आ रही है, स्क्रीन नज़र आ रही है क्लियर सबको? कैन यू गाइज क्लियरली सी द स्क्रीन? मतलब स्क्रीन में इशू तो नहीं आ रहा गाइज? कैन यू प्रॉपरली सी द स्क्रीन? ठीक है, इसको जल्दी से वाइंड अप कर देते हैं. देयर इज अ स्लाइट डिस्टर्बेंस इन द इंटरनेट राइट नाउ. So let's close the camera. I'll close the camera if the camera is lagging. So if you can hear me out. So let's finish this. Okay. So question number 19 में कह रहे हैं the table illustrates macroeconomic data for an economy. All figures जो हैं वो basically आपको क्या कहते हैं billions में दिए हुए हैं. What is the equilibrium real output? Now basically okay. So हमारे पास जो है, what you need to do is that we know that real income or national output is equals to a real GDP equals to Y is your national income, which is also your real GDP, C plus I plus G plus net exports, that is X minus M. So you add up all of them, you add up consumption, investment, government expenditure, exports and net minus your imports. तो हमारे पास जैसे सिर्फ सी ऑप्शन ऐसा है जिसके अंदर ये सेम आ रहा है. जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल वाई रियल जीडीपी 300 हम यहाँ पे लेते हैं और हम ये वैल्यूज़ लेते हैं. कंजम्पशन लेते हैं 140, कंजम्पशन एक्सपेंडिचर 140 प्लस इन्वेस्टमेंट स्पेंडिंग 100 प्लस गवर्नमेंट स्पेंडिंग 70 प्लस एक्सपोर्ट्स 30 माइनस 40. सो इफ़ वी सम देम अप एग्जैक्टली हमारी वैल्यू 300 के बराबर आ जाएगी. दैट इज़ आर नेशनल इनकम विच इज़ आर रियल जीडीपी. गॉट इट गाइस? समझ आया सबको? सो सी इज़ द करेक्ट आंसर. तो इसका सी जो है वो करेक्ट आंसर होगा. ओके ओके गाइस. ओके सो द इंटरनेट हैज़ बीन रिस्टोर्ड. एम आई नाउ, इज माई फेस क्लियरली एवरीथिंग्स फाइन नाउ? Can you now see my face as well as not lagging? Let me know. Question 20 says the diagram shows an economy's aggregate supply curve. What is likely to cause the supply curve to shift to the left, which means supply is decreasing. So हमारी supply कब decrease होगी? हमारी supply decrease होगी जब an increase in the increase in investment से तो increase होगी supply, not decrease. So increase in the marginal rate of income tax, because when the income tax rate will go up, the producers would be disincentivized, right? I mean, sorry, the workers, my bad, the workers will be disincentivized. So it can be counterproductive as well. Maybe the marginal income tax rate goes up too much. So that could reduce the worker incentive. It could reduce the work incentive, since it could significantly reduce disposable incomes across various levels of income. And that could have an effect on labor productivity, which will ultimately result into higher average cost, and ultimately translating into higher cost of production or higher unit cost of production, shifting the supply curve to the left. So boy is the correct answer. ठीक है, clear हो गई बात? Question number 21 says, 21 correct. 21 is a good question. What is question number 21? More than 300? What is more than 300? It can't be 140 plus 100 plus 70 plus 30 minus 40. मेरा तो 300 आ रहा है C में. मेरा C 300 आ रहा है बेटा. आपने पता क्या किया होगा? आपने 40 ले लिया होगा, minus 30 कर दिया होगा. सही है. क्वेश्चन नंबर 21. मेरा तो C, मेरा इसका बिल्कुल वही आ रहा है. 140 plus 100 plus 70 plus 30 minus 40. If I do it, mine is coming exactly equal to 300. ओके, सो आई अंडरस्टैंड. अब मैं समझ गया हुंजला क्या कर रही हैं. हुंजला नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स ले रही हैं, और नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स बेटा यहाँ पे नेगेटिव होंगी ना. नेट एक्सपोर्ट्स यहाँ पे -10 है, सो माइनस हो रहा होगा वो. ठीक है. क्वेश्चन नंबर 21. क्वेश्चन नंबर 21 जो है वो क्या होगा? What is question number 21? अच्छा हुंजला, आप लड़का हैं, ठीक है. थैंक यू फॉर क्लेरिफाइंग दैट. क्वेश्चन नंबर 21 says 21 का क्या आंसर होगा जी? 21 में देख लेते हैं क्या हो रहा है. बेसिकली the answer to question number 21 needs to be debit, because in year 1 what happened to general price level. So if the inflation, as long as inflation rate is positive, so you need to understand that as long as the percentage is positive, as long as time is measured on the horizontal axis, and as long as even if the graph is like this, so even if the inflation rate is going down, still price level is going up. Remember that. So the fact that, so पहले में तो देखें year 1 में तो inflation rate went up, right? Sorry, inflation rate was going up, meaning price level was going up. In year 2, inflation rate was constant. See, the rate of inflation was constant, but price level was still rising. I'll tell you why. For example, if in year 1 the price level went from 100 to, it went up by 10%. So inflation rate was 10%. So it became, the prices became 110. Now in year 2, the next year, it again went up by 10%. So inflation rate is constant, but it went up by 10%, meaning that 10% of 110, 10% of 110, not 100, 10% 100. So 110 का जब मैं दोबारा से 10% लूँगा, if I multiply it by 1.1, so again, so the price is going up. You can clearly see that from 110, the price went to 121. So even the inflation rate is constant doesn't mean that prices are not increasing. The rate of inflation is constant. That is, prices are increasing at the same rate, but they are increasing. So in year 2 as well, prices rose. In year 3 as well, inflation rate was coming down. It came down all the way. At the end of year 3, it was 0, but it wasn't negative. So even if, so inflation rate was basically, the fact that inflation rate is going down is disinflation. That is, prices are rising, but at a decreasing rate, but still they are rising, right? So year 4 mein inflation price level fell because inflation rate went negative. So whenever inflation rate goes negative, there is deflation. Deflation is simply negative inflation rate, right? So unless and until your inflation rate is in the positive area, is a rising, is basically a positive percentage, whether it is increasing or decreasing, but it's still positive, the price level will be going up, things will be getting expensive, the purchasing power of money will be going down in all these 3 regions. In all these 3, in year 1, 2, 3, the cost of living will be going up, the purchasing power will be going down, the real value of money will be going down. They could give you in any way. They could even ask you what is happening on the cost of living and the purchasing power or the real value of money. Okay? So for all these 3, cost of living is going up, purchasing power is going down, real value of money is going down. Question number 27. What is the current account balance? For current account balance, you take trade in goods, you take trade in services, you take primary and secondary income, you net them up, and that is you get your current account balance. Pretty simple. Okay, net portfolio investment comes in financial account, and transactions in financial asset. This is all financial account, so we will ignore that, and the answer should come up to negative 30 billion, I guess, right? 22 boy. 23. What is likely to explain an increase in the deficit of a what is likely to explain an increase in the deficit on the current account of the BOP? Okay. So the current account of the BOP, if that is in a deficit, so 23 guys, iska hoga A, an increase in government aid to countries abroad, because an increase in government aid to countries abroad comes under current account in secondary income. Remember, we talked about foreign aid as a current transfer. It's just a current transfer between one government to the other. So one government, if a country is giving foreign aid to other countries, then it will be recorded under secondary income. But an increase in aid means you are giving out more aid. You're not receiving the aid here. So more money is flowing out. It will worsen the current account balance. It will be recorded as an outflow, as a debit. Okay, it will be recorded as a debit, as an outflow. So it will increase the deficit on the current account balance, because when you are increasing the foreign aid to countries abroad, you're not receiving the aid. Okay, 23 is A. Question number 24. The diagram shows determinants of floating exchange rate between US and UK. The initial equilibrium is given. What might change? What might be the cause of an increase in the UK exchange rate? UK exchange rate, what might be an increase? Samra says, why not C? An increase in other countries' exchange rate. देखें, अच्छा अगर दूसरे कंट्री का एक्सचेंज रेट अगर इंक्रीज़ हो रहा है, सो उनके कंट्री की जो है वो प्राइस ऑफ इंपोर्ट्स बढ़ जाएंगी, और सॉरी प्राइस ऑफ इंपोर्ट्स गिर जाएंगी और प्राइस ऑफ एक्सपोर्ट्स बढ़ जाएंगी. सो I mean, they will import, let's say they will import more from us. ठीक है, they will import more from us. So our exports will increase. So in that case, our exports will increase. तो हमारे लिए तो फ़ायदा हो गया ना, because they will be able to buy cheaper imports from us now. So our exports should go up. So it should reduce the deficit, not increase the deficit. Our exports should increase, basically, if other countries are getting an appreciation. ठीक है. Question number 24 में, what might cause an increase in the UK exchange rate? So increasing an exchange rate means the currency is getting stronger, it might appreciate. So when could that happen? इसका correct answer would be increase investment by, देखें, this is basically increase investment by US residents in the financial and real assets in the UK. So this will increase the demand for pounds, because if US investors, US investors would invest more in UK financial and real assets, right? So definitely it will result in inflows in capital and financial account in the UK, increasing the demand for pound. So pound would appreciate in that case. So 24 should be David. Got it? 25. Okay, guys. Next, I think I told you guys that हमारे from 2nd of June, from 2nd June we will be having regular mocks here on our streams. Regular mocks, which will be challenging, and then we'll have followed by a discussion. Okay, 1 hour ka mock hoga, and then it will be followed by a discussion. 30 questions every day mock, followed by a discussion. Question number 25. इस तरह का क्वेश्चन हम पहले भी कर चुके हैं. The table shows the ability of two countries P and Q to produce two goods. Which statement is correct? So country Q has a comparative advantage in both the goods, but let's see if it has in which country does it has a absolute comparative. Country Q has an absolute advantage in both the goods, but let's see in which country does it have a comparative advantage. So इसका रेशो निकाल लेते हैं. The correct answer, country Q has an absolute advantage ना, तो country इसका आंसर या तो C होगा या D होगा. B भी हो सकता है because इसमें Q के बारे में लिखा हुआ है. But the correct answer is D for David, because if you see country P has a comparative advantage in Z, because okay, so 1000 over 1600 would give you basically 0.62y is to 1z, and 1500 divided by 2000 would give you 0.7y is to 1z. So I mean, country Q can make a z by foregoing more y, but country P can make the same z by foregoing less y. So country P has a comparative advantage in z, but country Q has an absolute advantage in y, and we already know that country Q has an absolute advantage in not only y but z as well. But okay, question number 26. Which action increases and which action decreases the level of protectionism? Which action increases and which action decreases the level of protectionism? Correct answer would be A for apple, imposing an embargo. If you impose an embargo, you increase protectionism, definitely. And reducing subsidies means reducing protectionism, because subsidies would inefficiently and unnecessarily protect domestic firms. And okay, so A should be the answer. B नहीं होगा. Imposing exchange controls could increase protectionism, but ये तो सही है, but lowering the quota is making the protectionism stronger. अगर आप quota को कम कर दें, you are reducing the quota. So reducing the quota means making stricter protectionism, increasing the trade barrier. वही वाली बात है कि if you're allowing 100 cars, but now you're allowing only 10 cars. So you're lowering the quota, so you're making the protectionism stricter. So A is the correct answer. 27. Country M imposes a tariff on the import of steel. Which price elasticity values will result in the smallest reduction in steel imports into M? (27) So obviously country M is imposing a tariff on the import of steel. So what is going to happen is that which price elasticity value will result in the smallest reduction now? So for the smallest reduction, tariff will increase the price. So if the price elasticity of supply of domestic producers is inelastic, so domestic production won't increase that much. So consumers will still need to import because domestic production isn't really available. At the same time, if the demand is inelastic, then consumers would still want despite the higher price. So the best combination is that for 27, we need an inelastic supply. We need an inelastic supply. At the same time, we need an inelastic demand. The reason we need an inelastic demand is because the higher price won't really reduce the demand. So consumers would still be demanding a higher quantity of imports. Consumers would still be demanding a higher quantity of that product, which is an imported product, and that product won't really be domestically available that much as well, because a higher price won't really be able to incentivize domestic production. Maybe they don't have the raw material, they don't have the space, or they don't have the necessary factors of production, so they can't, right? So again, it will cause the smallest reduction in steel imports. So if PS and PD both are inelastic, okay? 28 in 2012, the Indian government aimed to reduce its budget deficit to 5.1% of GDP. So if you're reducing your budget deficit, you want to reduce your budget deficit. One way to reduce your budget deficit is to reduce your government spending or increasing tax revenues, or simply increasing your revenue. So if you don't, अगर आपका देखें tax का revenue उतना नहीं है, so you will try to come up with a non-tax revenue. So one of the ways in order to increase your non-tax revenue you're just going to raise your non-tax revenue by selling government's public assets, national assets. ठीक है? So what will happen is that the government is going to increase the sale of state-owned assets, right? The government is basically going to reduce budget deficit by raising non-tax revenue. Okay, or it could just cut out its spending, but wo koi option available, there's no option available there. #29 says which policy is most likely to correct an adverse balance on the current account. So you have a current account deficit, and which policy will correct that? Which policy could correct an adverse balance? Devaluing the currency, because devaluing the currency means reducing the value of the currency, and we know that when you reduce the value of the currency, Samra says when you reduce the value of the currency, you improve the deficit because your export prices fall and import prices rise. That is why it would reduce the deficit, right? So devaluing the currency is the correct answer, because it would reducing the value of the currency, artificially reducing it would make your exports cheaper, imports expensive, and that would improve the current account balance. C इसलिए है क्योंकि A, B और D नहीं है. देखें सिंपल, इसका मैं आपको रीजन बताता हूँ. Which policy will help the aim ना? तो आपको अपना budget deficit को किसे कहते हैं? What is budget deficit? Budget deficit means कि your government's revenue is not enough to support the spending, so the government needs to borrow. But if the government ends up selling its own national assets, like its public library, or I don't know, whatever state-owned assets it has, maybe the electricity supply or the water supply or whatever national assets it has, maybe the railways or the national airlines, it will gain revenue, right? It could use that revenue to finance the spending. So it would reduce the budget deficit, because budget deficit means the need to borrow. So the need to borrow will go down because now you are getting revenue, although that revenue is not tax revenue, it's non-tax revenue, but still. So that's why. Got it? And all the rest of the options are incorrect. If you cut down tariffs, you will reduce tax revenue, so that will increase the deficit. Lowering the interest rate would end up, lowering interest rate is incorrect, because lowering interest rate would do is that what lowering interest rate would do is that lowering your interest rates would lowering interest rate is simply a monetary policy, so it doesn't really involve fiscal tools, right? And increasing government pension payments is increasing the government spending, so it's going to worsen the deficit. Okay. Question number 30 says a government reduced the tax on company profits to 28 to 20%. And which statement best describes this policy? If you're reducing the tax on company profits, is a corporate tax, right? So corporate tax, again, tax is a fiscal policy. So it's an expansionary fiscal policy, but it's an expansionary supply side policy as well, because reducing taxes could incentivize, it could create incentives for investment, which could raise productive capacity if investments take place and gross capital formation takes place. So it is a supply side policy as well. So expansionary fiscal policy, because lower taxes firms would increase in return, profits would go up, and they could expand investment, and investment is a component of AD, but investment is also a factor that leads to a rise in productive potential. So it's supply side policy as well. So that is what makes 30 boy the correct answer. So we are done with October, November 2018 as well. Thank you so much for joining the stream, guys. I hope there's no more questions, and I'll see you all in the next stream. Allah Hafiz.